Right.
Welcome back after the year-long sojourn to your father's sci-fi show. And today we are going to be shit-talking Star Wars.
Again.
Again, like everybody else. It's what we do.
Because why not?
And
So that's why you invited me.
so yeah.
Anyway.
And yeah. So yeah, Book of Boba Fett had dropped, and we're down to the Mandalorian episode of the show. And from what I've seen and from what everybody else is saying on the internet and YouTube, it's not up to expectations. I think some of it was better than some parts. Scott has not seen any of it, have you?
No, I actually have. I was watching the first episode, and then I was going to continue watching them, and then I didn't.
Right.
But
because yeah, exactly. And Frank has read the better books about Boba Fett than what they're
okay,
doing.
sure.
I have read numerous books and reappraised myself with the old expanded universe novels, A Bar of Like That and The Last Man Standing, to name a few, written by Daniel Keyes Morin. Very trippy stories, but I like them. Better than what Disney came up with. I'll give you. There's some politics in those stories that are very right-leaning, that are exceedingly incompatible with Disney's philosophy.
Probably so.
But we'll get into that.
Well, I think it's really aimed at kids. The Boba Fett's book. It's like they're trying to take the Boba Fett we know from Empire and Jedi, and rebuild the character into a good guy, but they can't quite do it as well as they did with Loki. So, but he's a criminal, and how do you sell crime to children? That's
crime.
If I may,
I can only speak to the first episode, which was 39 minutes long.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was trying to, because unlike some people, Frank, I'm not, I don't get like delve deeply into all the stuff, but yeah, Boba Fett's a bad guy, and okay, so he kills Jabba the Hutt. Okay, fine, I'm good with that. That's a bad guy, and then he's like, oh, but I want to rule benevolently.
Well, he killed Bib Fortuna, but we knew what you're talking about.
Yeah, whichever one he killed, I don't know. Yeah, that's right, because Jabba was already dead.
Yeah,
Jabba was dead before he ever miraculously survived the 1,000-year digestion of the Sarlacc.
Yeah.
He was only in there for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, basically.
Now the stormtrooper, he was in there a while.
But how did he get in there?
These are the droids we're looking for.
Story could happen.
One of us pals.
Only in there for a few minutes.
Well, that's also a thing too about them. I mean, they've already shown us Boba Fett was alive in the Mandalorian series, so did we really need to see him escape the Sarlacc? Because then it's just fan service.
Oh,
we've already, yeah.
There's an entire short story dedicated to his time in the belly of the beast.
It's
One
not
could
so much
almost
that.
draw parallels to Jonah or Geppetto in the belly of Monstro from Pinocchio, which is a Disney property, by the way.
Well, we knew he was going to get out. He had
Patton
3 ways to get
Oswalt
out.
looked like a genius.
Who?
Patton Oswalt.
I saw that clip where he's talking about he's like trying to filibuster something. It's some comedy show, and he nailed it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think
my ridiculous.
Opinion, but the first one, did we really need to see him getting out of the Sarlacc? I don't think so. I think it was a lot like and Frank will appreciate this. I think it's a lot like the prequels. You spent 6.5 hours telling us something we already knew.
Yeah.
I'm at that point. I'm
he either got out by himself or somebody helped him. or it spat him out because he killed it. I don't know.
Or he killed it and he crawled out.
Yeah, he either got up by himself or somebody helped him. And
I mean, he got out.
yeah,
Yeah.
why? How come that rocket pack didn't work? I don't.
Well, if you read the books, the rocket pack did go off, but
Yeah, it got
unfortunately,
broke.
he was pinned to the wall by many, many tentacles, Lovecraft undertones,
Right.
and he burned the Sarlacc rather badly. Got some nice third-degree burns on the creature. But, of course, his backpack, with nowhere for the reaction mass to go and nowhere for heat to dissipate, overheated and detonated in the belly of the beast, sending him far away from the wall that he was encased in, damaging that precious Mandalorian armor, which is the only reason why he survived. That's what happened in the story.
Okay, so Frank,
Which
what you're
sounds
telling
better.
me is the Sarlacc ate a bounty hunter and it gave him indigestion.
Yes.
It swallowed a Jedi some 6,000 years prior, which kind of gives you an idea how old this creature is.
So when
And the Jedi kind of considered
Did it really?
its lot
It was
of
6,000
being
years ago.
digested
Did it
as
really?
okay. I guess the Jedi assumed that this crude matter is not important, so that he was offering his flesh to the Sarlacc. It was just
No,
a
that's a
part of
different
the.
story.
that's even a better story than what happened in the show.
I know.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I downloaded the wrong Boba Fett show.
The Last Man Standing, which is in Tales of the Bounty Hunters, spans 29 years. It starts 10 years before the Battle of Yavin in 77 and goes all the way to 29 years in the future, where Boba Fett and Han Solo are old men. That's all before the NJO,
I
before
do
the
think I've
Phantom
read
Menace.
that. I may have read that because I can't remember them being old. I remember something of a story of them being old men. I probably did read it at some
They were
time.
two old
20 years
cowboys
ago.
making their last stand. So one of my big problems with Boba Fett is Boba Fett was never meant to be in the front line of Star Wars storytelling. He was this mysterious gunslinger.
Right.
He follows the trope of the spaghetti westerns. He's the mysterious gunslinger in the background. He never was supposed to be a frontline character. But for some reason, the Star Wars fans and their irrational, goodness, how deep an insult do I want to jab into Star Wars fans' chest?
All the way.
You got
To the hell,
mesmerized by that
man, to the
sexy
hell.
helmet and that sexy
Right.
armor, and that's all you could think about is, ooh, Mandalorians, they're so sexy. He's just a background character. Take a deep breath. We should be focused on Luke. We should be focused on Leia. We should be focused on Han or Grand Admiral
What about
Thrawn.
Chewie? What about Chewie?
Oh, well, everybody
Chewie.
forgets Chewie. Even Steve
All
Perry
right.
forgot Chewie a lot. And oh yeah, Chewie did this.
Ryan Daly did well with Chewbacca,
Yeah.
as did Ann Crispin, but that's another story. We're not talking about them yet.
Well, they messed up when they had Jango Fett be the clone donor.
Thank you. That's
That-
the problem with George Lucas. A character got popular, and he swelled that person up so big that he drowned out the rest of the characters. Darth Vader got very popular after 1977. So they're like, oh wait, Anakin was Luke's father, and Darth Vader was the guy who killed Anakin's father. Well, now mind you, and that's another debate in and of itself.
From a
The thought was
certain
in his
point
head.
of view.
Stop. Darth Vader became more popular, so George Lucas had to make him more central to the story. So the goiter, the boil, which is Darth Vader, then took over the prequels. When the prequels should have been Obi-Wan Kenobi's hero arc, not Anakin. It wasn't supposed to be about Anakin. Anakin was his failure. Luke Skywalker was the redemption. But George Lucas lost, goodness gracious. George Lucas got so distracted with the pod race, it all became about Anakin instead of about Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan never stepped foot on Tatooine in the Phantom Menace. Something's wrong. Anyway,
well,
so now Boba Fett has the same problem.
Sure
Boba
does.
I think the thing is
Everybody
that
thought he was cool. Oh, look at that cool armor. Okay, let's put him into the prequels as the prototype Well, Jango Fett, his father was the prototype for the clone program, and he is the son of the prototype. Because Boba Fett has to be pulled into
he's
the
a
middle
clone
of the story.
He's a
storytelling.
clone. He is not the son. He is a clone.
Right. Well,
That was his payment. His payment was an unmodified clone.
Right. Which makes him his spiritual son for all intents and purposes. Or baby brother if he was a twin. But
Palpatine should have been
Boba
the
Fett
clone
was
donor.
never supposed to be such an integral part of the story. For crying out loud, why didn't the Jedi go and investigate why 1.2 million clones were made in episode 2? Oh, let's just trust them to defend the Republic. Come on, Yoda.
It's a war story for children.
Okay, wait, hang on.
Nobody traced the money.
Okay, first of all, the Jedi don't have their stuff together to begin with. All right, let's look at the whole freaking thing. All right, let's go back to it. And we've all heard it. If Watto took Republic credits, none of this crap would have happened. None of it. But here's the thing. Do you think that maybe, just maybe, I don't know, Obi-Wan, Yoda, the other, motherfucker with the sword, whatever. You think any of them guys ever thought, hey, you know what? We rescued Anakin. Let's go get his mom. No.
I got an article on that.
And then like every time you turn around, they're screwing over Anakin. Every time. And who does it worse than who does it to him worse than the Jedi?
Would that be plot-driven storytelling?
Padme. You want to know why their relationship wasn't believable?
Conspicuous plot hole. Because somebody was focusing too much on Darth Vader and not on all the other characters. Watto, why did we need Watto? If Anakin came from Tatooine, and there is strong evidence to indicate that he was born and lived on Tatooine, as per A New Hope, why wasn't Anakin a slave of Jabba? Jabba the Hutt. Why do we need this Watto? Who is this Watto guy?
He had the hyperdrive.
Well,
only someone as worthy as Obi-Wan Kenobi, who believed he was the best Jedi in the galaxy, could have stood in front of the vile gangster. There's a bit of translation that's missing when Luke talks to Jabba in Return of the Jedi.
That would have been a better one.
He says it, but you don't see the subtitle. He said, I was killing Jedi, when that actually meant something. That's what Jabba said, which leads me to believe that it would have been Obi-Wan Kenobi who would have negotiated with Jabba. And then maybe Anakin had to fight some big creature down in the basement. And then Jabba, of course, would have had to import a Rancor from Dathomir to replace it.
Which sounds good because George Lucas said he liked things to rhyme. That would have been a great rhyme.
I think that if slavery
exists. And as they take the manacles off of Anakin's wrists, he says, Jabba, I hope someday one of my line puts this chain around your neck. And he turns around and walks away, which would have made some really good rhyming when Princess Leia took Jabba out, Luca Brasi style.
Yeah.
Watch The Godfather.
You'll liberate.
And I think Anakin should have had the same choice Luke had.
Well, I think that you were asking why Watto had slaves. I think if slavery exists, then you're going to have a number of people that own slaves. So Watto having his own set of slaves to do whatever it is, that's not really as unbelievable as you're able to walk into a warlord's domain and kill him and everybody around him, and everybody goes, okay, yeah, you're the boss now.
Well, Chronicles of Riddick, you get to keep what you kill, but survival of the fittest. The problem is, though, you kill a Hutt. The Hutts are very much like the mafioso. You kill a Hutt, you're going to have other mercenaries coming for your head.
I thought that was funny. In the
Jabba had an even more powerful father named Zorba.
Yeah, in the book of Boba Fett. In the book of Boba Fett, there were two Hutts that were kind of vying for the territory, I guess, of Tatooine or whatever. But since Boba Fett showed up, they just kind of like, all right, we tried to kill you, it didn't work, so we're leaving now.
Ridiculous.
And they just left.
They're working on something. There's something
ridiculous. Hutts are very powerful.
Talking about the twins that don't look like each other? Yeah.
Right. Well, what happens? You got all these people holding this litter up. What if they just decide to tip the
I got an answer for that.
Now, what are you slugs going to do?
Princess Leia originally wasn't supposed to be Luke's sister, but George Lucas got tired of making Star Wars movies, and he drew the sister card. Now, mind you, there are earlier drafts that talk about
Yeah.
Luke having sisters and brothers. So like I said, a lot of that continuity was still percolating in George's mind. So how does Timothy Zahn fix the problem? The wife becomes the sister becomes the wife. Enter Mara Jade. The Jedi that Yoda was talking about in Empire Strikes Back was not Princess Leia. He was originally talking about Luke's sister, who was not Princess Leia. But then Luke's sister became Princess Leia and became the mother of the next generation of Jedi. But so Timothy Zahn created this Mara Jade to be that missing. She was originally the sister that was far away, and then she became the wife. So that's my answer to that.
But see, here's to me, this is how I look at it, and maybe I'm just looking at it wrong. I think if they were going to do something with the stories, maybe they should have used what was already written, but at least don't screw up everything else by backing up and going, oh yeah. I mean,
Disney and Lucasfilm are a cheap bunch of good for nothings.
Yeah, I think
they didn't want to pay royalties. They didn't want to pay royalties to these various authors. I mean, do you know who took over Jabba's smuggling operation after he got killed? Talon Card, which is a character created by Timothy Zahn, that name that I always mention. And Talon Card took the smuggling operation off of Tatooine because Tatooine's a freaking backwater piece of garbage.
Right.
And he moved it to a more secure planet that it was even semi-Jedi proof, which is Hanagar. Not Hanagar, excuse me.
So Jabba was a big fish in a little pond.
Yeah, yeah, he's a big fish in a little pond.
If you're going to look at it as a mob type, business, then yeah, he was a large fish in a small pond. So that, but I think that my issue becomes if you take a story and you go, okay, here, boom, here's this gem that is A New Hope. Here's this gem that is The Empire Strikes Back. Here is, Return of the Jedi.
See,
then you shouldn't. If you care about the franchise, you shouldn't piss on all of that by going, yeah, only. And I think that's what they did, and I don't know why they did it. I can understand that George Lucas was. I can understand that they were making to who? To George Lucas doesn't want to pay royalties to himself. You're still using Darth Vader, whether his name is Anakin or not. Mm-hmm. You're still, and then when you circle back and you add that in, The Mandalorian was great. You had exactly 50-50 in the audience on that one. You had 50% of the audience that was like, cool, a story about Mandalorians. And you had the other 50% of the audience that went, bag that. That's not Boba Fett.
It's Boba Fett with the serial number ground off.
Right. we did hit the 10-minute marker, so we'll have to wait till that runs out and restart.
Yeah.
Unless I upgrade to the Pro.
Yeah, I see it here. It's like 853.
So how much is the Pro?
I don't know.
Because I'm willing to invest.
Trying to decide whether Robert is just sitting there or whether he's actually pixelated. Nope, he's moving.
Your brother likes to meditate.
I just can't get a word in edgewise, so that's.
Well, what have you
say?
You have 8 minutes.
Disney said the expanded universe is no longer canon, and now I can't remember his name. Filoni and Favreau said, here's some little pieces from the expanded universe. Now it is again. So, I can do that. See?
Well, I think I see. You go back to the canon, not canon thing. And I hate to morally offend anybody, but I'm going to bring up Star Wars real quick, or Star Trek real quick, because the thing that makes Star Trek canon is anything that has Gene Roddenberry's name on it. It's canon, period. End of conversation. You move on. But I think with the Star Wars franchise, intentionally or not, the people that fell in love with the New Hope were kids that grew into adults. So maybe they were looking for something, you know, and Lucas said he was making movies for kids, which is why we had a Jar Jar Binks.
Explain to me then why on a 75-foot screen in 1977 we see Owen and Beru incinerated. They were larger than scale. I was 9 years old when I saw those burning skeletons. I don't want to hear this crap. That
We
it's
can
not
take
about
it.
kids. It's all about kids. That is a lie.
I didn't say
We can take
I didn't
it.
say all
That is
about
a
kids.
lie.
I didn't say it was all about
1,
kids.
2, and 3. The prequels were for kids, not 4, 5, and 6. 4, 5, and 6 was for a mature audience.
Right.
You know,
You could even
that-
argue the prequels. You've got Anakin marching into the Jedi Temple to kill children, which is highly symbolic of the murder of the innocents from
Yeah,
King Herod.
I still think the
gonna
kids should have
catch on
taken
for
him.
that
They
part.
outnumbered him. That they should have been able to take him.
That's
Bite his-
that's
bite his
children
ankles.
entertainment, the murder of children, and you see one like 12-year-old trying to desperately defend himself as Anakin is mowing
Oh, that's
down
pretty
children.
brutal.
Is that what Ben Kenobi said? I thought Ben Kenobi said that Darth Vader killed Jedi, not trainees. Where
Well,
was this
okay,
big,
see,
where was this big massacre of actual Jedi?
okay,
Well, he
well,
didn't really
okay,
point out
here's the
everybody.
thing.
Anakin Skywalker
Here's the
was a
thing. He covered
disappointment.
that by saying from a certain point of view. Okay.
This is-
Now
He
that's
didn't-
like when
he
that's
didn't
like when he
say that
hands
the
his
Jedi murdered.
like when like
by
Luke
a certain
shows up
point
at
of
his
view.
house and he goes, "Oh, hey, by the way, here's your father's lightsaber." Yeah, he murdered like 100 fucking kids with it. You think that would have been a little, helpful information for Luke to
would've been.
have?
It would have been.
He did say that Darth Vader hunted down and murdered the Jedi Knights. Helped the Empire murder
And
and
at the
hunt down a
help the
Jedi. So
Empire
there was
hunt
an
down and kill the
Empire,
Jedi. Yeah,
then there was a Darth Vader, then
That's
there
like
was a
the
Jedi
only,
Purge.
that's like the only thing
George
he ever
can't
said
even
that was
remember
true.
his own scripts. How can you say what George said is
You
canon
can't.
when he contradicts his own scripts? He can't even get his own story straight. Gene Roddenberry did a better job as far as continuity is concerned. And still, Star Trek is a continuity disaster. Episode to episode, it's more of an anthology back in the 60s. But anyway,
Well,
we go
I
from
think
the
samurai
difference
to
is-
Buddhist monks who aren't allowed to reproduce. They're chaste. They can't have children. Yet George Lucas signs off on a novel called Children of the Jedi several years earlier by Barbara Hamley. The guy doesn't even know what direction he's going. His rudder snapped off a long time ago, probably somewhere in the mid 80s.
Whatever's good for the story.
And back to Scott.
I just, well, I
do we-
mean,
I mean, Rob.
you're very passionate about it, but I think the reality is that once you start having, once George Lucas lost or gave up control of his creation, then at that point you pretty much will have to go, yeah, it's done. I mean, there's no.
He gave up control of his creation, and those authors did a better job. He went head to head with the expanded universe and lost. Kathleen Kennedy went head to head with the expanded universe and lost.
Well, I mean, I think it
They
was
should
great
have
that
been
they
on
took
their
Kathleen
knees
Kennedy's
before
name off
better
everything
authors
and
than
had to do with
themselves.
Star Wars. That was kind of nice, but it still, though, I think in the larger picture, and we've said this before, we've had this discussion before, in the larger picture, they wasted 3 movies telling us how Anakin became,
Darth Vader.
and there were other story arcs they could have used. And yeah, it is a big disservice that they decided and now whose fault is it? Is it the fans for liking Boba Fett? Or
No,
is
it's
it,
the burden of storytelling is on the storyteller. George Lucas should have realized Darth Vader needed to be dialed back. He was a scary guy in the background, and that's what kept him scary. Boba Fett was a scary guy in the background, and he needed to keep him there. He did not need to become relative to the prequels.
Here's where I disagree with you and why. Okay.
All right,
And
go.
we go back to story arc.
Do you
It's
wanna-
all about redemption. The whole thing is about redemption.
Yes.
Darth Vader had to redeem himself from all the horrible things he did. Now, we didn't need to know what they were. We just knew that this guy hunted down the Jedi, turned to the dark side, was evil. Everybody was scared of him. And the only one in the entire universe that didn't crap themselves when he walked into the room is the Emperor. Okay, great. And then He can't let the Emperor kill his son. Boom. He kills the Emperor. Redemption. Okay. It's the same argument. It's the same thing about Han shooting first. Han has to shoot first. This establishes him as a scoundrel and a scumbag and a nerf herder and all that stuff. And then when he shows up to save Luke's ass, redemption. Okay.
Someone was redeemed in every episode of the original trilogy. Han Solo in A New Hope, Lando Calrissian in The Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi. There was no redemption arc in the prequels because you were focusing on the wrong character. It was supposed to be Obi-Wan Kenobi's redemption arc.
Should have been, according to you. It should have been.
It should have been.
It's written down.
And Leia remained a bitch.
It's in the book. Let me get the exact quote. I'm going to go ahead. So Disney doesn't want to pay royalties for expanded universe stuff, which is why they denigrated it to legend status. So, okay, now we can't use Talon Card, who took over the smuggling operation, who was a guy who was 10 times smarter than Boba Fett and a great businessman. So what are we going to use? We're going to use recognition. Okay, the fans are idiots. They haven't read anything. They don't know anything. So we'll just use a familiar face. Boba Fett. Enter Boba Fett, a man who doesn't run a criminal organization, isn't a smuggler. He's a bounty hunter.
And his reasons for wanting to do so are even more ridiculous. So he doesn't want to work with idiots. So he's going to go in business for himself. I'm thinking, well, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, you dropped off Han Solo and then you hung around Jabba the Hutt for what reason? You could have left. If he was such an idiot to work for, you could have left and done some other bounties, but you hung around and you got swallowed by a sarlacc and you changed actors and you came out of it.
I can almost.
And you're like, well, I can't wear a white jumpsuit anymore because I'm a new guy now. I got to wear a black jumpsuit now because I'm heavier. And
well, I think it works. I think it actually works out because
Jeremy Boyd
he brought
Boba Fett.
Han to Jabba, and Jabba paid him and probably invited him to hang out and party for a while.
Right.
You know, or maybe he figured he'd hang around going, yeah, probably somebody's going to try to come rescue Han. I'll hang out and wait for him.
Very good. That was the truth. Boba Fett, that was Boba Fett's argument that Leia and Luke and possibly Lando Calrissian will come to rescue Han Solo. And they all had big bounties on their heads. So why does the bounty hunter have to hunt if he can sit in one place and let 300,000 credits come to him?
That's true too.
That's in the book. That's in the book.
I
didn't read the book and I figured that out.
I'm sorry, I'm making too much sense, aren't I? Maybe,
well, no,
maybe the author thought about it a little bit.
You contradicted yourself. You said because the fans were idiots because they didn't read. I didn't read that. I just kind of went, well, this makes sense to me.
I didn't say that. I said Disney thinks the fans are idiots.
Oh, well,
so
yeah,
they had to use brand recognition. Oh, Boba Fett, he's like the most popular guy in a freaking helmet.
Yeah.
So let's make him replace Jabba the Hutt instead of another Hutt. Come up with a better Hutt. There are plenty of great Hutts out there if you read the books. Yeah. And Carol Crispin wrote a whole planet of interesting capitalists who weren't necessarily criminal masterminds, but
they should have got Tatooine.
They didn't want to pay royalties. Bring in Zorba. Jabba had a father who was just as bad as him, if not worse, even fatter. And he had dreadlocks coming out of his chin. But I don't know. They didn't want to pay royalties to people who wrote the Glove of Darth Vader series. That's what it boils down to. They were cheap. They cheaped out and they made cheap crap. And they'd rather license Saban with the Power Rangers than license actual Star Wars authors who had good ideas. I guess Timothy Zahn is more expensive than Saban Entertainment. Anyway, I just had to throw that in there.
with the mod.
The multicolored speeders. Nothing on Tatooine should look bright and high saturation. Nothing. Everything should be gray, scraped, dented, rusted, corroded, oxidized. Right. Nothing should be shiny on Tatooine.
They had to throw back to the 60s mod scene. And
okay, I have one.
Let me put all these.
See, here's my issue, and maybe I'm wrong.
You have lots of issues, but go ahead.
You take a hunk of metal and you stick it in the middle of the freaking desert, it is not going to rust because there is no freaking moisture.
Fair enough.
Mad Max, Fury Road.
Go
None of the cars
to
were rusted.
Mars
New
is
Mexico,
rusted.
where the largest junkyard in the world sits.
Yeah.
You can look at it from orbit. Guess what color it is? The color of rust. Because even in the desert, as per that Toto song, even Tatooine wants a little rain every once in a while.
I miss the rain down at Tatooine.
Let me tell you something. Your vehicle sits out in one sandstorm, and you're not going to have any finish on it
Oh
whatsoever.
no, there's not
Right.
going to be any paint on. No. See, I'm not arguing that there wouldn't be paint. I mean, it's going to get pitted, it's going to get torn up, but it's not going to rust. It's going to do a lot of things, but it ain't going to rust. It's going to get, blasted. It's going to get sandblasted away, but it's not going to rust.
And
Yeah.
the
This is a
Power
great
Ra- I mean,
sidebar.
not the Power Rangers, damn it. The mod bikes, all the custom bright, pretty, shiny stuff was a nod to American Graffiti.
I could see that.
Yeah, and just
yes.
way too many nods to other things.
But Han
Yeah,
Solo's Millennium Falcon is a rat rod for all intents and purposes.
right.
And there isn't a
I
shiny
think we could
bauble on
do
the
an
thing.
entire show on how the whole industry seems to try to survive on
We're gonna
Easter
nod after
eggs
this,
and
nod after that.
and all this,
Fan
homage
service.
crap.
I agree.
There's nothing.
Because they got nothing. They are creatively bankrupt.
Yeah.
They could not come up with a character to replace Jabba the Hutt. And they had one. But they didn't want to pay the royalties. It
Right.
all boils down to being cheap and spoiling everything because they can't pay a royalty to Timothy Zahn to use a better character.
But what
Actually,
they could have done. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
wasn't it Timothy Zahn recently who said that he still hasn't been paid for the
You're
book?
thinking of Alan Dean Foster, the author of
Yeah.
Splinter of the Mind's Eye. He has been waiting on royalties since Disney transferred from George Lucas's command to the Walt Disney Corporation.
Yeah.
There's a whole, it's on YouTube. There's a whole interview with him. He's waiting on royalties. And it's like,
What
Disney
they
for some reason thinks
Yeah.
it doesn't have to pay royalties because it's changed hands.
what
So,
they could have
He's
done.
very angry.
What they could have done is just
I
have a
believe his
show,
wife is dying from cancer too. So Disney is heartless.
and nobody
You'll
gives. a
never hear me say anything good about Disney. I'm sorry.
Well, hush. What they could have done was just do a show about a bounty hunter who goes out and collects bounties.
The
Mandalorian.
in
And
essence,
not even
Mandalorian
make him
was a
have-
good idea
talk.
because it was a nobody on a nowhere planet, completely new cast, new characters, and you can't make continuity mistakes if you're in a far distant corner of the galaxy that the legacy characters were not.
All right, just have him go out. Just have a bounty hunter character go out and do bounties and bring him in, and have maybe one guy in the galaxy that's chasing him down and bring him in for something else. Just like, I don't know, the A-Team, the Incredible Hulk.
There are
Practically
analogs
every
to all of
freaking
those.
television show ever in history.
From the 80s that
Yeah.
we used to watch as kids. I think
Thousands
that's
of planets,
that's
trillions of citizens,
what they got.
and we got to go back to the same old people, and you can't even do them right.
And they got to weave all this other extra bullshit into it. Do we need to see a baby Yoda? And that be
Yeah.
the story.
Little baby Jesus
You,
Yoda.
you know my
Maybe a little
opinion.
bit.
Yoda's race is sacrosanct. Not
Yeah.
even George Lucas. There's an interview, and maybe we'll link it when we finish this video. I'll go get that video. There's an interview where he read an email from someone who wanted to know about Yoda's race and Yoda's homeworld. And you know what George Lucas said? I don't know. Do you know why he doesn't know? Because the secrets of Yoda died with Lee Brackett, who wrote the original scripts for Empire Strikes Back. George revised them greatly, but who Yoda was, and you know my theories about Yoda being the Lady of the Lake because he raised Luke's X-wing out of the bog, which makes him kind of like the Lady of the Lake. But who knows what Lee Brackett really thought about Yoda? I've actually been looking through her other writings, trying to find a similar character, maybe to find out who Yoda is. But honestly, George Lucas has no right to create the character Yaddle in Phantom Menace, and Filoni and Favreau have no right to create Baby Yoda because they know nothing
Maybe it
about
was a
that
great
race, and
grandfather
that
she
race
had.
Okay,
had to have been critical.
I'd like to address two things here that Frank
Go
said,
for it.
and I'm going to disagree with him categorically on both of them.
Cheers.
Okay.
Categorically.
Yoda is not the lady in the lake. Yoda raised Luke's X-wing out of the swamp to prove to him that the physical being has shit to do with the Force. Nothing.
Size matters not.
That's why he did that. That's it. That's the sum total of it. The
They
other
actually
one
used a
is,
crane.
well, yeah, no, the puppet really did it, man.
They had to get
Come
that
on.
thing out of Lucas's new
Don't
swimming
take that from me too.
Yoda, I don't believe it. That's why you failed.
Right,
Fuck you,
exactly.
Dan.
And that's see Yoda. I mean, even when and here's the geek part about it, okay? Because I was actually watching. I'm sorry, I was actually watching the Last Jedi before we started filming this, and Yoda still has the same complaint about Luke in that show as he had with him, back when they were at Dagobah. You're always looking at now. You're never looking, you're looking everywhere but where you are right now.
Right.
And he's still pissed off at him. He still didn't understand it. And there's a discussion that Paul and I were having. We'll probably have it later. I don't think this is really the place for it because we're trying to discuss the Mandalorian. We keep getting sidetracked on canon and non-canon stuff.
Sorry.
But I mean, the thing is if Yoda's race is not known, then he's a blank canvas. You can say anything you want to about him. And that's why when the Mandalorian first came on, I was doing math because I was actually looking at, and maybe this is an odd way to look at it, I was looking at Yoda's race as being something where only one lives at any given time.
Curious.
They're not a prolific race. Clearly, they're not a prolific
there is obvious.
Race.
Well, no, because
But-
in the Phantom Menace, we see Yaddle and Yoda at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So they're
That's what-
coexisting.
Right.
Huh?
When we were trying to crunch the numbers on it, see when it was, and it was like, this is X number of years after the Empire fell, and the Empire fell this far after Yoda died. So if this was, to me, that's, and maybe my numbers are wrong, but baby Jesus Yoda was 50 years old at least. And that's
So all three of them existed at the same time.
Did they?
Because that means that he was born, and maybe, they haven't really addressed who the mother is or how they even reproduce. They may simply come into existence. But anyway, Baby Yoda or Grogu, whatever you want to call him, if he's 50 years old, then he was alive when Yoda was alive and when Yaddle was alive. So
the child.
Excuse me. Sorry. We got three of them alive at the same time, somewhere around the Phantom Menace.
But okay, and since we're talking canon and you love to read these books, how long did the Clone Wars actually go on?
Oh, goodness.
Forever.
Okay.
Well, first of all,
here's the thing. Okay, so
there wasn't one Clone War, because obviously if you're saying Clone Wars,
right,
there has to be more than one.
Right, and I'm
why were the Jedi
two.
understaffed?
But understand
Attack
that
of the
Yoda
Clones
was dead long before
Who killed the Jedi off that they were understaffed in Attack of the Clones? Samuel Jackson said we're understaffed. What happened? Who killed off all those Jedi? Was there another Clone War?
Look,
maybe
I'm still trying to figure out how the Emperor can be killed and the Resistance take over the government, and like 6 months later, the First Order is up and running and in power. What the fuck? I mean,
It was a reboot.
This is
They just rebooted it. That's all it was.
Paul, edit this part out. This is as fucking stupid of a concept as January 6th being a fucking insurrection. What the fuck? Sorry.
Love you, Scott.
No, but
it doesn't make sense. That's the point.
I will say this is that
you want the answer to your question.
The
answer to the question is that the consumers consume crap.
They sure do.
They consume garbage, so they make more garbage. I have tasted of the filet mignon, which I always say that. In regard to the Thrawn trilogy. Once you've tasted filet mignon, I am not eating a bologna sandwich. Period.
You get hungry enough, you will.
You want to blame there?
Trust
You
me.
can blame the consumer.
Hang on, dude.
The consumer
when
consumes
Paul and I were in
garbage,
the Air
and
Force,
we get
and Paul
garbage.
said, "Don't talk about the Air Force." But when Paul and I were in the Air Force, we had a place called the Flight Line Kitchen. It was referred to as the bag nasty. The food was fucking atrocious. And you know what? 6 weeks into squatting in the fucking desert, you know what would have been filet mignon to us at that time? That shitty food from the in-flight kitchen. Okay, it's perspective. It's perspective.
Go back to the States and get yourself a nice steak with
Right.
mushroom gravy.
Okay.
So anyway, on the Mandalorian,
Yeah, so the Mandalorian.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're overall it's a shit talking on Star Wars, but yeah, but the new show.
Paul will piece this all together. Don't worry about it.
I think I would.
I don't
much
think
rather
there's
have
anything to
seen
take out.
Season whatever of the Mandalorian. I would rather have that than
Yeah,
to watch
I think
a bounty hunter who has an epiphany while he's in the gut of some animal that takes 1,000 years to digest. I mean, what's the digestive juices? Water? I don't know.
We could do a show
good.
on that alone.
hydrogen monoxide.
We are
Very
doing a
dangerous.
show on it. It's happening now, Frank. We're talking about the freaking Mandalorian and the
All
new
right.
Boba Fett show.
What Disney did wrong, or what Lucasfilm did wrong, or what Kathleen Kennedy did wrong, they needed to cowboy up and actually make the Mandalorian the Boba Fett show. The Mandalorian should have been the Mandalorian. It was Boba Fett. He's got a freaking flamethrower. He's got all the darn tools that Boba Fett specifically had. They should have just made that Boba Fett. Period.
Yeah.
But instead, they were
and I
afraid.
disagree with
They
you.
ground off the serial number, and they brought in a car from the chop shop. And now they wonder, oh, here's the real car,
and now
it's a freaking mess.
No, I
Yeah.
disagree. I completely disagree with that because
Okay.
you would never see Boba Fett, the disgruntled freaking clone who watched his father get murdered and became a bounty hunter. You would never see that character go and, oh, here's a poor innocent child. Fuck you. He's like, I don't give a shit. Let's talk. Let's take this fucking baby back. Let's give him to these guys. I don't care what they do with it. So they couldn't do it. They could not do it with Boba Fett. Boba Fett does not have a conscience. He has been a
Zachary
bounty hunter
Smith
too
syndrome.
long. Do what?
Grogu is Dr. Zachary Smith.
well, the
Yeah.
way I used to play with my Boba Fett action figure was a lot different than the way you play with yours,
That's right.
and that's why I'm basing my Boba Fett on is how I played with the character. He was only about this big.
I'm not legally allowed to say how I play with my Boba Fett character.
Did he escape a Sarlacc pit?
See, this is what's hilarious. They created a Mandalorian, a completely new character,
Yeah.
Sure.
and it was a success. And they didn't.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, you had your occasional cameos, and of course, Dave Filoni had to bring in his pretty little darlings in from Clone Wars, but you really didn't need all of those cameos. You could have just done a show about a Mandalorian bounty hunter going about his business, using completely new characters everywhere, new
Right.
ships, new planets, new everything, and the
Everything.
consumers would have eaten it up. And guess what? Even I might have had to endorse it.
Right.
But the writing was freaking atrocious. The first scene, episode 1, the Mandalorian is coming down that canyon, and there's Trandoshans, Bossk race, those mustard-colored reptiles. They have melee weapons. You're going against a Mandalorian with melee weapons?
Well,
If
they were
Filoni
smart.
was in the room, I would have slapped him in the back of the head. Idiot! Ranged weapons against Mandalorians. You bring a freaking speeder scale missile launcher if you want to take out a Mandalorian. Idiots! I was turned off at the first 5 minutes.
Nuke
What
over Morbid.
garbage
That's
is
the only
that?
way to be sure.
Trandoshans are not
Oh wait,
that
wrong
stupid.
franchise.
They are now. Sorry. These were the dumb ones that didn't last long. Obviously.
What a rookie mistake. Oh my goodness. I would have jumped out the window if I wrote that. Garbage. And then, of course, there's the door that cuts the guy in half.
Well, I like that scene.
Why would you design a cantina like that?
Dude,
Hey, you
come
got to
on,
cut it people in
Robert.
half on one occasion.
Robert, tell this guy about all the freaking OSHA violations in Star Wars, okay?
Oh
Just
my goodness.
enlighten
Clearly,
me.
Star Wars has no OSHA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Freaking
No
doors,
railing.
huge ass iron fucking doors that open and close that fucking fast. Okay. You got these
Yeah.
walkways that are like 2 feet wide that are 10,000 freaking stories down and no guardrails.
Right.
But they know
Okay.
to stay away from the edges.
I still don't like the Irish story. It's just really that's the best you got? Because it was just used as like a cheap stunt.
They cut a guy
But
in
anyway.
half. Holy shit, they cut a guy in half in the first season. Oh my God, what kind of story is this gonna be? Oh,
Well, no, I mean, but
it's gonna
it's-
end
I
up with
think
a baby Yoda, so don't worry.
If
We'll
you've
tone it
seen,
down.
They
I
didn't
don't
even
know.
realize that Baby Yoda would be popular. They're just like, oh, this cute little thing, and we'll get rid of it.
They were
It's-
banking on it. It's Disney.
Look,
Come
man,
on.
you
I mean,
never
you
know.
look-
You never
they-
know
they
what
took-
people are
If
gonna
they were
like.
banking on it, they would have had toys prepared before time. They did not. They pulled a 1 year. By the time the toys came out,
They took
the
Stitch.
energy for
Made him
Grogu
green and shorter.
had been greatly diminished. They
Lilo
did not
and
have
Stitch.
toys ready.
Lilo
They
and
failed.
Stitch. They already had Stitch. They had Lilo and Stitch. They just took Stitch, shrank him, turned him green. There you go.
exactly. Mandalorian, episode 1,
Go ahead.
cuts the guy in half with his, uses his lasso to do that, to catch it. If you've seen the second Kingsman movie that Pedro Pascal is in as
I did
the
see that, but I don't remember
weird
anything about
cowboy,
it.
watch that bar fight scene again when he's fighting with the guys.
So you're saying it's a trope?
If that scene in The Mandalorian is not an homage to the Kingsman fight, you know,
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was. I mean, I think in Kingsman he even cut somebody in half with the door. I don't remember.
I mean,
Well,
you knew
I
it was,
think
you knew
if
there
you
was going to
look
be a
at-
fight.
I think if you look at I think if you were to be like me and be a nerd and look through the actual credits, you might find that the fight coordinator for both of those are the same guy.
Could
Could
be.
be.
I could be wrong.
Now, I've seen
I could
that
be wrong.
second movie of the Kingsman, but I have absolutely no recollection of whatever happened in that damn thing. I don't.
I never saw it, so I will.
Oh, it's a great show. Kingsman is a great
don't know.
movie. You got
I-
this really
I
expensive
remember
suit, so
nothing.
now you're able to
I know I
to-
laughed a lot through the movie.
do all these incredible things, because you got a suit.
That was another thing with this last episode with when he goes back to the armorer girl
Yes.
in the ring world, and it's like what, 3 of them left now
Yeah.
from that COVID. 3 of them left.
Yeah.
And she's
There's
worried
the
about.
armorer. There's Dave Filoni. I mean,
There's a big tank guy, and then there's Din, and there's just 3 of them, and she's worried about did you take your helmet off?
Yeah.
I mean, like, who's gonna fucking give a shit now? There's only 3 of us in this clan
Yeah.
left, unless you want to
Yeah.
count.
There's 3.
So
Well, the whole take
and
the
the whole
helmet
thing-
off was stupid idea.
Right, but there's
It was
another.
a poorly thought out idea. And Paul, I want you to insert some images from
I don't-
Marvel Comics here of examples of actual Mandalorians with their helmet off, eating and doing normal things.
All right, and the shit about the Darksaber,
Yeah.
which they kind of, I think in the last episode we did a couple of years ago when
Oh, yeah.
when that was happening, I showed that
Yeah.
the Sabine Wynn, whoever she gave it to Bo-Katan,
You
and it was
Yeah. Just handed it.
That was fine.
hand it here.
We had to fight to death over it, and then they had to fight to the death over it, but they didn't really. He's got it. But who cares about the rules anymore? Whatever the fuck the rules are. I mean, I was seriously thinking that he would just let the other guy win so he could have it. Because if you want to rule over whoever's left, here you go. If you want to fight me
John
for it,
Favreau
I'll
was gonna
lose
cut
to
his
you
throat
and
off.
you can have it. But I don't see the whole point. You know what I mean? Like, who's going to say what the rules are now? And there's only 3 of you left.
Technically,
Three
the
of you left.
Republic, the Republic TSA ruled Mandalore for a while.
Right, but yeah,
Because the
I mean-
the droid defeated him using bureaucracy to have him turn over to surrender the Darksaber. And then when he got to Tatooine, he gave it back to him. So that's, technically.
But winning a sword as a means of leadership. I think Monty Python has something to say about that in the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
It's not a good way of
tart. Yes.
throwing a sword at you.
And that's
You're
doing
the
it.
king.
Yeah, there's just
I
a lot
don't think
of
there's
Mandalorian stuff that just did not make sense from the show.
It's poor world
The
building.
helmet thing being one of them. I mean, how do you eat? How do you drink? How do you,
that's the thing.
take your helmet off.
So you're telling me
bathe?
you're telling me that Din Djarin can remove all of his armor, go out in the world in his street clothes, but he has to keep his helmet on. I would think that if he went out in his street clothes without the helmet, nobody would know who the hell he was or that he was a Mandalorian at all. So what would
Who
be
knows
the
if he
problem
did
then?
that?
And you notice when he's wearing the Beskar armor,
It's like it's his work uniform.
suddenly all the stormtroopers know how to shoot.
Yeah,
Well, that's another subject. You might want to watch the breaching of Princess Leia's blockade runner and watch those stormtroopers mow down rebel troops 3-1. The bad shooting was to let them get away so they can find the rebel base.
I know that.
Right. All right. Like I said,
I know that, you fat fuck. Okay. Now don't tell me I don't know my Star Wars shit. Oh, we're on. Sorry. Hi, Frank. Listen.
Oh Lord.
yay. Well, I think too a big problem with Star Wars is that it's trying to bring in a younger generation. So Disney Channel is a channel for kids, and Book of Boba Fett just seems to me like it's geared more toward younger audiences than its core members. I mean, its core fans who are in our 50s now.
Leftists don't think we're smart enough to teach our children how to be adults.
Right.
So why would you think that leftists would think we know how to teach our children to be Star Wars fans?
What I'm saying is they're missing their mark for the target audience. We're the target audience, and they're not doing anything for us except showing us this crap we don't care about.
Well,
they're not
if
bringing
you
in
piss us off, we're not going to expose our children to Star Wars products. My son, my 9-year-old, has only seen 1977: A New Hope in the theatrical release twice. And actually, I'm going to show it to him again because I want him to see it at least 6 times before he learns about Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
I'm literally recreating my own childhood that way.
But I do think they're trying to gain in younger an audience. And
they are. There's no doubt about that.
But they don't care about it.
Robert, how many times did you see A New Hope?
My son doesn't give a shit about.
Well, it was in the theater.
Oh, well, I would say 417 times.
Good for you. I only saw it 6 times.
The entire summer that it ran.
Yeah.
Dad was a friend with the theater manager. And when you're off of high school for summer vacation, there's nothing else you do. I was there in the morning for the first one. I had lunch there. My breakfast was popcorn and hot dogs. And then they would be right on through to the very last one. In fact, I got to see it. I had won a couple of tickets at a local radio station. The New 62 WRJZ.
I was about 7.
From John Boy.
Yeah. John Boy Isley, who went on to have a very good career.
Yeah.
I think I saw it once in the theater. It was a drive-through, and I only remember the chasm swing and maybe some trench war from the original viewing of it. That's the only thing I remembered. Everything else was from HBO. Once they hit HBO, if it was on while I was awake, if it was airing when I was awake, it was on the TV. I remember there was a time it was on the TV, but I was in the bedroom playing, but I had the volume up high enough and I knew everything that was happening just from the dialogue because I've seen it so many times before.
And the Foley is great because it's like after about the 8th or 9th time, the little background sounds, when people are moving, anyway. The best part though, there was a double feature. Scott, you probably remember this. I don't know if you do or not. The theater's gone. It was a drive-through. It was a drive-in.
The drive-in when we took
Right.
Dad to it and got Dad to finally go
Right.
watch it.
Right.
Oh yes.
And yeah.
Yes.
And if they would show the first movie, then they would show Herbie Goes in Monte Carlo, which was
Cool.
the same. And then they showed Star Wars again.
Yeah.
Well, we had missed Star Wars, so we watched Herbie, and we're sitting there. And if everyone who knows this, is like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
The ship flies over.
Pew,
The
pew,
bigger
pew,
ship
pew,
flies
pew.
over and keeps flying over, and Dad's sitting there going, they have the big fight, where the boarding party, the whole thing, and everything is there. There's smoke. Vader walks in, puts his arms on his hips, and the speaker goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, the snack bar will be closing in 10 minutes. If you wanted to get anything, please go ahead and make your final purchases." And Vader walks off.
And Dad loved the movie
And Dad,
just for that.
because of that, Dad really loved the movie, and bless his heart. And that, every time I see it, I think of Dad, and I think of that. Ladies and
The
gentlemen,
concession stand closes in 10 minutes.
it was just so.
I think. Oh wow.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
that,
That's pretty funny. As evident by the laughter.
but Dad loved the movie
He did.
because of that.
All that matters.
Yeah.
And kids and adults like Star Wars, the trilogy, the original trilogy.
It spoke to everyone.
Yeah, it spoke to everybody.
What's everybody else's excuse?
And I mean, if you're gonna make Boba Fett a crime lord, watch Narcos on Netflix first, and then take your cues from that.
Go back and watch The
yeah, but don't
Godfather.
make-
I mean,
Don't
so
base it on
somebody
law
wakes up
from
with a
Better
Dubak's
Call
head
Saul.
in their bed,
Yeah, make it like Pablo Escobar.
Pascal. Yeah. Pablo Picasso. No, wrong guy.
Wrong guy.
Not the least food,
Well,
but the
yeah,
thing
I
is,
think
we need to see some headless corpses hanging from bridges.
I do think that choosing, I think choosing Boba Fett for either one, the Mandalorian or these Chronicles of Boba Fett's just not, to me, is not believable as somebody that spent their entire life doing something and now wants to be a crime lord.
Yeah, because he's tired of working for idiots. That was his.
What idiot?
Which is
you tell me I'm going to make
which is what
30,000 Zulexes to go over here and pick this guy up. Hey, great, terrific.
I
You
don't
know?
know. He did explain, but then he got what's her name to work with him, and I'm thinking maybe she's thinking she's working for an idiot now. I don't know. He seems to be an idiot, in a kind of a way.
Well, I mean,
I'm watching the show thinking, why doesn't Fennec take over?
He goes down in town with
That
like
could be their intention.
two guys that are kind of questionable of their loyalties, and one other person, and then they get attacked by laser ninjas.
Right.
and they
It's
just
all
have
over
to
the
keep
place.
reminding Fennec Shan's, they have to remind her of her Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing by coming at her with agents with shields.
Yeah,
That.
And then do the whole
oh.
rooftop chase.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. The parkour.
parkour.
And it was like bang, Oh, by the way, keep the other one alive. Okay. She says, I only need one, and she chucks the other one over the edge. I mean, that was great. I love that.
It was.
Wasn't there a video game that like Arabs were running across tops of buildings or something like that?
Yeah.
1,000 Nights, 1,000. I remember a video game of something similar to that. And I looked at it like, oh, they're doing this.
Oh, Assassin's Creed
One
is
step ahead of
famous
the
for that.
assassin,
I'm
one
thinking
step
something 8-bit.
ahead of the sword.
8-bit
Oh,
or
good
16-bit.
Lord.
I have no idea.
No, I have no idea.
We'll look it up.
We don't have to.
Okay.
So
There's a Jawa sand crawler, not on Tatooine. And yeah, maybe these mining devices were left on this planet and abandoned so that the Jawas could appropriate them on this planet as well. But I just find that is highly coincidental. That big mudhorn creature that they decided to eat the egg from would have made a more logical vehicle for the Jawa, who traditionally ride on pack animals and are scavengers. But fan service, pure fan service.
You can't sell droids off the back of a mudhorn. I guess I don't know.
You could be right.
You could have a cart.
Well, see
And
that,
it
I
could be
mean,
pulling something, yes. But just that was just pure fan service, and I'm like, statistically unlikely, unless that was a mining planet, because those were mining rigs that were left, were abandoned on Tatooine. A strong nod to Frank Herbert, but there was nothing to mine.
And a very small
small
Jawa creature has enough strength to knock out a Mandalorian on the ground.
With
I
his
thought that
helmet.
was, huh?
He was still
that
wearing his
whole
helmet.
scene made me sick. I'm like, you got a jetpack, you've got a gyro grapple. Why are you trying to work your way up the side? It almost was fan service. If anybody has played Nintendo's Super Star Wars from '91, it almost reminded me of the scene, the jumping quest, where you're trying to jump around and
But
get
he
to the
came
top
out
of
of
the
the
Jawa
sand
sand crawler. So
several
maybe
feet away
Fallen
from
played
the
that
pit.
game and he had to do a little fan
The
service.
jetpack was broken because Han hit it and broke it.
Yes.
And that's what sent him off on his little flippity trip
You got
into
the thing in the pit, but he comes
Yeah.
out of the pit to the side and comes up through the sand.
Yeah.
Several
He
feet
also
away from it.
he was also stuck and hanging from the side, and they were trying to scrape him off, which reminded me of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
See, you're
the old
talking about
World
the
War I
book, and
tank.
we're talking about
That
the
was
show,
funny.
and it's just weird.
yeah, but yeah, Boba Fett coming out where he did from the sand after climbing out of the Sarlacc
In the
pit.
show, didn't make
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So you have a movie for me? Yes, sir, I do. Oh,
We want to talk about the new ship he has. It's like,
Yeah.
tell me,
Naboo Royal.
tell me you're not going to be a bounty hunter anymore without telling me you're not going to be a bounty hunter anymore.
I still want to know where the carbon freeze chamber was on the Razor Crest.
In the
Did I get
closet?
that right?
In the closet.
In the closet.
Yeah.
yeah, next to the toilet.
What did the carbon chamber look like in Return of the Empire Strikes Back?
That was
We
from
had
bigger
that
things.
conversation before.
That was for
Frank,
bigger
we had that
things, though.
conversation before. They had to convert different machinery to be able to do it. The whole thing, when they walked in, they were talking about it. It's like, yeah, it took us a while to convert this to make it do what you wanted it to do.
So you go to
You know,
your
if
local
they
Razor
had
Crest
Montgomery
dealership
Scott in there, they could
and
have
you
done that
check
shit
the
in like
box
20
for a
minutes.
carbon freeze unit.
That's
Right.
aftermarket.
Well, okay. The Razor Crest had the device to do it.
Yeah.
Once they
It
knew
doesn't
you
have
could
to
do
be
it,
huge. It just has to have just has to work. Where they were at, what they were doing, they needed it to. They used the equipment that was there.
we get it.
They
Carbon
weren't gonna
freezing is
trick
such
Luke
a
into going on to the
a
Slave
pain.
One, which is its name, to get caught. I'm sure that Boba helped him with the freezing unit stuff.
see
Even
Frank.
if he had to pull they had to pull parts off of a Volvo, to make the box.
Maybe.
Rare.
I mean, yeah.
Maybe the Razor Crest is a TARDIS and actually has much more room inside than it does on the outside, which I
Well, I
personally
know, I should
consider.
go soon.
All
My Hasbro
science
one is
fiction
on its
ships
way.
are like that. I've yet to see, probably with very, very few exceptions, I have yet to see a starship of any kind that makes sense.
The
As far
Serenity.
as here's what it looks like on the outside, but on the inside, it looks like this.
The Serenity was a 3D
This.
model, and they were true
This.
to it.
This.
Yeah.
What are you pointing to?
I'm getting this. What you're saying, how people go
Oh.
this.
Oh,
This.
okay.
So let me ask you guys. Din Djarin did exactly what any one of us would do if we had a lightsaber. He hurt himself.
Yeah. Hey, yeah. Hey, he did hurt himself.
Yeah.
Because
I'd give that a plus. I'd give that a
Very-
plus.
He hurt himself. Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
Luke Skywalker, deadliest weapon in the universe.
I mean,
Hold
they
it up
took
to your
the.
head and look at it.
You love
Okay.
it. They took the Naboo starfighter. They took some panels off of it. They made it all nice and shiny and silvery red. They put a nice air filter on top of it. and some nice
They built
50
the
cal
rat rod.
guns,
Yeah,
a third engine under it.
the little notch, that was kind of cool.
You know, we cranked it up. The little engine was, I mean, it wasn't the actual engine, but it looked like a hot rod engine because you had the air filter sitting there bobbing around.
I guess that is also.
We ever get
an
around to a
homage
show
Because
on
American Graffiti.
Starships.
and we did all that because, you know, those guys can't help themselves from trying to suck off George Lucas's love of hot rods enough.
Right. To me, that scene was from like the first Mad Max movie where Max is introduced to the Interceptor. A little piece from here, a little piece from there.
Yeah.
And the only thing that was missing was her saying, "Kick her in the guts, Barry," to start it.
Right, yeah.
There was another
But
Mad Max reference too, at Thunderdome, when he's taking all the weapons out. You know, that's just like that's what my head went to was
Okay.
those two things. So
But let's say you're a contractor and you have a construction truck. It's your pickup truck, it's your construction truck. You put all your shit in it, your ladders, your toolbox, all this stuff in it. It gets totaled in a wreck. You got a friend says, "Hey, I got this old Porsche. Maybe we can do something with that." And you go, "Well,
okay.
Good
We'll
luck.
put the ladder rack on that thing.
yeah, you can't really do nothing with a fucking Porsche, but if you're a contractor." So he's
Well, you take the
what's he gonna-
body and the bed off the pickup truck, and you put the Porsche on top and make it into a monster truck.
If
Right.
he's gonna start cutting heads off, he doesn't need that much storage space.
That's true. You just throw them in the hole there. I mean, they got the bubble because they're gonna have baby Yoda back in there. I think I could probably sell.
I don't
It's the
know.
only thing that makes kind of sense, doesn't it? We're gonna put a plexiglass bubble over the joint socket.
He went into hyperspace. No, he didn't.
You can't shove criminals in there. I guess you could if they're all dead.
Yeah.
Disney runs its entertainment wing like a news media corporation.
Yeah.
Something is successful, they will super saturate it until it's dead. They'll beat that horse into chop meat,
Right.
and then they'll move on to the next thing. And it's like you can't overdo. If you super saturate an element, it just drowns out everything else. It dilutes everything else.
Right. I mean, it's a nice looking fighter, but it's not a bounty hunter workship.
No,
Well,
you need a shuttle or bigger.
again, why should I like Boba? Why should I like Boba Fett? Why should I root for him? He kidnapped Han. Han was, trying to get his shit. Han was trying to get the money together to get to get the Jabba.
I don't know why.
Right in the middle of that, wham! Now you're
because you played with the man when you were a kid. You played with him. You had a little figure.
Actually, I was in the Planet of the Apes, but that's a whole other conversation. But
I'm in on that one if we're going with it.
I mean, my Boba Fett was pretty cool. He was until they got tired of playing with him.
Lego got Scott and myself through an interesting childhood as far as our imaginations go. If it weren't for Amigo, like with the Star Trek and Planet of the Apes figures and that, everything else kind of sucked. I mean,
But Jeremy Bullock was a cooler Boba Fett than Morrison could ever be.
yeah,
Just in his poise and his stance.
He was more like your spaghetti western.
Right.
His body language produced an intimidation.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
They should have just retired the character. He
4
went to the
lives,
pit. Now he's
7.5
done.
minutes.
Now you got this bigger fella who is trying to shove him into a tight coveralls. It's not a good idea. He can barely fit the armor.
got a plus size guy going.
Yeah.
They could have recast, but once again, they were trying
a little portly
because-
to go for brand recognition.
Because they messed up in the Phantom Menace.
Yep. They're going for brand recognition. That's it.
Wait, hold on, wait. Oh my God. Okay. Jango Fett was the template for all
Yes.
for all the stormtroopers.
Yeah.
His pay was an unmodified stormtrooper child, which is Boba.
Right.
That means at this time running around It means that this time running around in what's left of the Empire, there's a whole bunch of portly fucking stormtroopers. Oh, actually, hang on to me. Hold on.
I know I've said this before, but you see IG-88 in the garbage reclamation room on Bespin in The Empire Strikes Back. You see IG-88's dead body back there. You realize that's the last shot of the Clone Wars. Boba Fett killed IG-88, so he got dibs on Han Solo. That was the last shot of the Clone Wars.
Okay. Yeah.
And most people miss the significance of that because George Lucas made these stupid robots that say Roger, Roger, instead of silent killing machines that are leaping like locusts. The IG series, but I wasn't involved.
Well, you know, you got to make the kids laugh.
Yeah.
I laughed at the interaction between R2D2 and C3PO. That was fun, which was actually one of the problems with The Empire Strikes Back, is you separated two characters that had really good chemistry, or maybe one person who could act for two, AKA Anthony Daniels. But anyway, I digress. What else?
I don't know.
All right. Well, you see the Mandalorian disintegrating people. So is that a standard issue weapon for all Mandalorians or just Boba Fett?
I don't know because Boba Fett doesn't have that. The other guy had it.
The other fun thing I thought was funny is that the stormtroopers in the Mandalorian are walking around with flashlights on their blasters, and I'm like, the helmet.
Yeah,
stormtrooper helmets have night vision in there. That's why they're wearing helmets, because they have all their equipment in there.
Yeah,
maybe because the stormtroopers were modeled after the Mandalorians a generation or two ago, because they fought the Clone Wars against the Jedi. I don't know.
The audience needed to know. They needed to see. I don't know.
You want to know why they have flashlights? So the show can happen.
I think the stormtroopers would look creepier in the dark, and you just see a subtle glow of red from their eyes, indicating they have night vision built into their helmets.
It would be green, but yeah.
Oh, green, yes. I would use red because
but see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. You've got a squad of stormtroopers moving through, and they've got their NVGs going, and they're looking around and they're trying to do their thing. Dude walks out with a fucking 14, credit flare. And now they're all blind.
Yeah,
I would assume that the stormtrooper helmets would have.
It's like back in the movie Patriot Games. The guy's got the night vision goggles. He's going through the house looking for somebody. For some inexplicable reason, he looks out the window. There's a storm coming up. He looks out the window. There's a bolt of lightning goes by, and he's blind. Way to go.
So the show can happen.
So the show,
I suppose. But these are just things that really, I'm like, they make absolutely no sense to me.
Well, I think the problem is that in too many shows, and it happens far too often for my sensibilities, is a complete and total lack of continuity. And it's, I mean, you look at different series and different things, and, something is discovered in this show that never is ever mentioned again, or something happens in this that
we pulled up the transporter logs and we reprinted her because she died in Star Trek. Remember that episode? Yeah. Well, then no one should die ever again after that instance in Star Trek.
Theoretically, now here's if we want to make that digression, here's the thing.
Not the Star Trek place.
You get on the transporter pad, you transport down to a planet. Okay.
I'm there.
You age 5 years. When they beam you up, they just introduce that pattern back in that they have stored, and you didn't age. You're the same age you were the first.
At that point, you don't even need the transporter anymore. You go into your cosmetics boutique in San Francisco in the 23rd century.
The New You shop.
Like in Logan's Run.
You go to the New You shop.
You go in there and it's like, I need to take 20 years off. I left a save of myself back 20 years ago. I'd like to be 22 again, but keep my synapses, keep my brain flash in. You have to take responsibility for your technology. Whether it's a super weapon, whether it's matter transporters, whether it's hyperdrives, you need to take responsibility for your technology.
Transporters are amazing things anyway.
And the rules of
Because
your culture.
if you really, really need them, then they either don't work or they will beam somebody through shields.
Well, this is about
Good old
Star
plot
Wars.
devices.
So let's get the continuity of Star Wars, Scott, as you were saying.
Continuity of Star Wars sucks. The first three movies were good, that being 4, 5, and 6. 1, 2, and 3 totally skewed that off the rails. And the postquels, the whatever
Sequels.
epilogues, yeah, the sequels, they're rubbish. You know, and what I hate most about the prequels on it is that they created more freaking plot holes than anything else. If we're going to touch on that, Paul and I were talking earlier. You know, why did Kylo Ren need a map to find out where Luke was hiding?
J.J. Abrams. That's my answer.
You know, he knew where the guy was at because he had him on that freaking planet, on that freaking island, not alone, not in exile, you know.
Yep.
And was training him there and tried to kill him.
Well, why did he need Luke anyway?
Why didn't he go look there?
Why did Kylo need Luke to begin with? Luke wasn't doing anything. He wasn't stopping him. He wasn't getting off his ass and
Obviously,
doing
Rey
it.
didn't need any training.
Well, not right, because Obi-Wan Kenobi didn't get off his ass and stop the Empire either. He just kind of hung out. He was no threat. Luke's no threat. Why do you even need him for? We need to know where he's at. We keep tabs on him.
The Jedi are a farce, man. Every time when they get their ass kicked, they run and hide somewhere.
They do. They run and hide.
You know.
What do you expect from people who kidnap children?
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Oh, Sith are our specialties. 2 minutes later, he's laying on the ground. His ass kicked.
And the question has always been, why didn't they go looking? They knew Beru and Ben Skywalker that were raising Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Is Skywalker like the word Smith in our language? It's like it's such a common name. It's like, you know, because hey, you know, there's somebody named Skywalker over here. Let's go investigate that.
Hey, my name's Skywalker.
Or actually, you know, maybe it's Tatooine for Patel. I don't know.
No. Even better than that. You go to the conversation. You go to the conversation between Obi-Wan and Yoda. You know, referring to Luke. Yeah, he's our last hope. No, you dumbass. You were there when both of them were born.
Or maybe that little technical detail was wrong because Luke remembers Dagobah and Leia does not. Leia remembers her mother, but Luke does not, which suggests they had different experiences.
Now, I think what
Leia
remembers. I think what Leia remembers about her mother is actually her surrogate mother.
No,
but still,
it's like ask her. Why would Luke ask her? Leia, do you remember your mother, your real mother? Why would he even ask? He is a fully realized Jedi at this point.
Because I was an infant, I don't have any recollection.
Okay, but even then, it's like, you know, Padme gives birth. That was Luke. That was Leia. What do we do with him? I want her to go and live in a lap of luxury and with this king and become a princess. Blah blah blah. What about the boy? Fuck him. Send him to the Tatooine.
Shut him in the desert.
It is logical to separate them because they're both force sensitives and they're both potentially can destroy the Emperor. So you wouldn't keep them together.
I get the separation thing. I get it. One was a fucking princess. One was a fucking moisture farmer. The fuck? You know, it's like, you know, and that circles right back around. The only reason Anakin became Darth Vader is because the shit the Jedi did to him.
I have argued this point. The lack of continuity begs the question, did George Lucas actually write these scripts? I know if I made continuity mistakes like this in my own RPG campaign, I would expect my players to kill me.
Well,
Did
there's
George
always
Lucas
hope,
actually
right?
write those scripts?
He didn't write very well. We'll give him that.
Because it doesn't appear that he has a good memory.
He had a good idea. He should have had somebody more
There's-
skilled to
yeah.
write the scripts.
What Paul
I think
said.
that has a lot to do with it too, is that you can have a really great idea for something. And I've had some great ideas for stories, but I don't ever know how to flesh them out. And that's why
Oh, Tim.
I think I really like Paul, because Paul will actually sit there and he doesn't have a character that just is. He doesn't have a character that does this thing unless there's a specific reason the character does that.
Right.
And that's what I like about it. And
Yeah.
but I think that when you're, it's the 4, 5, and 6 make sense. The Mandalorian makes sense. 1, 2, and 3 is garbage.
Right.
7, 8, and 9 is garbage. And Boba Fett is, from what I've seen of it, and I'm going to watch the rest of it,
It's
but so far I'm not impressed. Why? Because I don't think that almost dying in a Sarlacc pit is the whole reason to walk away from being a bounty hunter and want to be a crime lord.
They sell it poorly. I think
What would have
it's-
been interesting to actually improve the book of Boba Fett is he needed to spend more time in the Sarlacc and exchanging DNA with a crime lord, a powerful crime lord, maybe one that Jabba threw into the Sarlacc.
Wait. When
All
you
right.
say exchanging DNA, are you talking
you're
like,
being digested
are
in
you
the
talking
the
like
Sarlacc.
Boars?
You share
exchanging
experiences.
DNA, or are you talking like what
Boba
Help me out here,
Fett
Frank.
suffered genetic damage being in the Sarlacc because
I
the
get what you're
Sarlacc is
saying.
commingling
I get
your
what you're saying.
DNA while you're in there. So what if there was a more powerful Hutt, maybe a Hutt named Carcoon, who was thrown into the pit hundreds of years ago, and Boba Fett commingled with his mind and his thoughts, and suddenly he's a changed person. He is a diluted Boba Fett. He's a commingled Boba Fett. He's a mixture now. And when he comes out, he's a different person. That would have been 10 times the story.
Okay.
But you would have had to
Here's-
read some of the old
And
stuff
we're
to
only
get that.
4 episodes in. That could be where they're going.
Maybe. If they
But-
are, then they ripped off the older books. They ripped off
I
Tales of
think-
Jabba's
Okay, but
Palace.
see, again,
I think the Book of Boba Fett, with some people, not everybody, but with some people, I think it's suffering from the Caprica problem.
Yeah.
They're trying to tell a story, but people
Yeah.
want everything food fed to them right
Right.
now. And it's
Yeah.
like, this is stupid, this is stupid, this is stupid,
yeah. Well, I think I'm not discounting that a bounty hunter, a career bounty hunter, could go, you know what, there's got to be something different. I'm not discounting that. I'm
Yeah.
discounting being in the gut of an animal whose digestive fluids are equivalent to water would be the catalyst.
I can make a better argument for that. The
You could-
Sarlacc
you could-
chooses.
he
how
climbs
quickly
out,
you
he
get
gets out of the
eaten.
Sarlacc pit. He's, the Jawas come by, they take his armor from him. He's in the desert. What happens to him between that time and that time? Because clearly, this
He's
wasn't
rescued by
this-
Dengar, but anyway.
It's like
I remember
the
that. I
time
read that one.
the time that he went into the Sarlacc pit, the time he got out of the Sarlacc
He was
pit,
with
could
the
have been
Sand
too
People
long
for a
because he
while.
didn't starve to death, didn't
He was-
die of boredom, whatever. And
No, what-
now is, a decade.
The
Would
Sand
you
People
like me to
take
give
him.
you my best guess as how the Sarlacc's metabolism works? Some
No, because it's a stupid
sapiens
idea.
are digested slowly because the Sarlacc is taking on their knowledge. Banthas, Dubak, Crike dragons, they fall in and the Sarlacc devours them instantly and gives some of that energy to the people it's eating slowly. There was one Jedi down there for 6,000 years. There were other criminals down there. Some of Jabba's inadvertent flunkies were down there, and
Okay.
Boba Fett was down there.
Again, the Sarlacc in and of itself is a ridiculous concept.
Yes, it is. I
It's
agree.
a desert environment. We have this ungodly huge thing that lives underground and waits for shit to fall into its mouth.
Antlion. Yes, I get it.
Right.
You know, the thing that I can find more believable ish
It's fantasy.
is the animal, whatever the hell it's called. I'm sure somebody somewhere knows what the name of it is. But the animal that they uncovered while they were looking for the little nodules that give water.
Oh, the Ray Harryhausen thing.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Ray Harryhausen
yeah.
thing. The thing with 6 arms that was sleeping under the
Under the
sleeping
dirt.
under the sand and got mad because Greedo's cousin Vito, whatever, you know, woke him
Right.
up. I don't know, you know, but it's
But-
you know, but even at that rate, again, we're in the desert and we have a creature that, you know, appears to be some type of reptile. Okay, fine. Cold-blooded. Okay, requires its heat from its environment. Okay, great. Little more sensical than let me sit here. You know, like Linda Lovelace in a porn movie.
Waiting.
You know what?
I don't know. Here's another thing too. Boba Fett was a part of Jabba's palace. The retinue, the people in there. They're all
Part of his
they
court,
all
yes.
knew each other. They all knew each other, right?
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
So
Yeah.
if he wants to get his ship back, what's the problem? Just walking in there and say, "Hey, I'm alive. We're all buddies here, right? Can I get my boat back?" Oh yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
Nothing established them as being enemies. Why all the
continuity.
But he had to get what's her name to go in there, and they had to fight the guys and have a battle with the stupid kitchen robots and
Yeah.
And and get the because it's turned into Robert Rodriguez's Spy Kids is
Oh goodness.
so. But yeah, why not? I mean, is he on bad terms with Bib Fortuna? Of course not. He wasn't.
He shouldn't be.
He shouldn't be.
No.
He should just walk in there and say, "Hey, I'm here. All right, cool.
Yeah.
You want a job? I don't know. I'd just like to get my ship back and head out to the stars and make my living as an ordinary man in the universe."
Yeah.
Paul probably knows this, but Bib Fortuna became a brain in a jar in the novels. He became one of the Bomar monks and was walking around in one of those little spider jars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which you see at the beginning. You see at the beginning of the Book of Boba Fett trailer, and I'm like, "Oh, is that Bib Fortuna?"
No,
And then you
no,
see Bib Fortuna, and I'm like, "Oh well."
no.
Bib Fat Tuna, but
So
It's just annoying. And this is the argument I've been making for decades is we invested in all these books, all these comic books, role-playing games, video games, and they did a very good job of maintaining continuity. There will be people who argue with me, but small local continuity problems are easily mitigated. When you make a major change and you turn samurais who can marry and have children become Buddhist monks who are now chaste because George wanted to make it a more juvenile story, so it's forbidden love instead of adultery, instead of going in full bore on the Arthurian story and even going back to King David and Bathsheba, which is what the prequels should have had, is some adultery, but that would have made it too adult, which doesn't make sense to me because you got Luke Skywalker kissing Princess Leia, and then later in the next movie he says, "Oh, by the way, I'm your sister." And there's incest in the Arthurian legend as well, because Morgana Le Fay and King Arthur, her half-brother, begot Mordred.
yeah.
It's all
Star
there.
Wars, I
They
wanna
just used
see.
the wrong pieces of the puzzle.
Right.
It's all there.
Oh Lord.
goodness.
Yeah. So Boba Fett escapes the Starlight Pit.
Yes.
The Jabba steals his armor. He gets taken
No.
in by the Tusken
He left
Raiders.
his armor in the pit of Tarkin.
And the show.
All right, I'm
the
sorry,
show,
keep
the
going.
show.
Go ahead,
The
I'm
show. I'm making a point here.
I'm
in the
confusing
show.
your story with facts. I'm sorry. Go on.
So the Java steals his armor, and then the other guy buys it, but that's a different story. So he lives with the Tusken Raiders for a while. He changes the old white suit for a black suit. He finds Fennec. He takes her and sent to a hospital, to a body shop, so she can have metallic guts. I don't know how that's supposed to digest her food or get rid of waste, but she's got nice pistons in there to move up and down. So that's that. And then they decide to go get his ship. So they sneak into the palace and they have a fight with kitchen robots, and then they have a big fight in the hangar. And then they get the slave one. He's looking for
He goes
his
in and has to
armor.
kill people to get a ship that they should have just given him back.
He's looking for his armor now because the Jawas don't have it. And that ends up in the Mandalorian episodes.
Yeah.
And then he has some fun with that. He gets his armor back, and then he goes back to Tatooine to kill Bib Fortuna and then take over the crime syndicates there.
Annuity.
That's what's going on.
Yeah.
Jabba's palace reverted to a monastery in the books.
Was it monastery first?
Yes.
And he took it over.
The Bomar monks really didn't care about Jabba. He did his thing, they did their thing, and they coexisted.
Yeah.
So once he was
I
gone,
think
they
they were-
kind of just went back to what they were doing.
Yeah, I'm trying to have a hard time imagining. I really am having a hard time imagining monks allowing people to be thrown into pits and being eaten alive.
Well, that wasn't going on. Well, all right, no, I see what you're saying. You're talking about the Rancor pit.
Yeah,
They had a very kind of live and let live kind of philosophy.
But and this guy, when you see it, you might laugh as much as I kind of groaned at, because Boba Fett's looking for his armor. For some reason, he doesn't remember Jabba's taken it off of him, so he thinks it's still in the Sarlacc pit. So he has the slave one, and he's looking for it. And you would think a ship with sensors could find his Beskar armor in this pit of this animal. He could hover over it. You think he could hover over it, use a sensor beam to look in there and see it. But no, he rolls it over so that he can tilt over the hole and look through the canopy glass with a light.
And yet they have Pablo Hidalgo, an actual game designer for West End Games, not helping them with that. But
This thing is hanging somehow. There's the hole, there's the ship, and and they're both looking at it, and then a tentacle grabs it, and the slave one cannot escape the grip of the tentacle. So Fennec has to get out of her chair, and she hits a button to release a sonic detonator thing, and they kill the Sarlacc that way, because it kind of rolls off the thing and goes into the hole. I'm thinking,
I hate to tell you,
what?
There was no getting out of the Sarlacc unless it was killed, of which Boba Fett did with multiple
but I'm
grenades
thinking,
from his grenade
I'm thinking
launcher.
you could get away from a tentacle. You could rip the thing off the fucking arm. I mean,
Yes.
you can achieve escape velocity in this thing.
Yes.
So you should be able to pull the fuck.
Yeah. Worst
If you're
case-
not going to pull the arm off, you're going to pull the whole thing out of the hole.
Worst case scenario, you
But
you rotate and go into max thrust. You
Yeah.
burn the thing up.
I mean, he's
or it
hanging
lets
over,
go
so
of you.
his thrusters are the top here. So I guess he's hanging repulsive lifts or something because he's in over the hole. It's bizarre. And then the thing is pulling him into
It's
the.
bad writing. It's plot device.
It is.
That's what
I'm
it
like,
is.
why don't you just? You got sensors. What the fuck are you doing?
Focus scan.
Right.
Roll. Make a sensors roll.
No, let's look into it with our eyeballs. Oh no, it's trying to pull us into it. What do we do?
I don't know.
I'm strapped to my chair and I can't reach the button to launch the sonic thing. And the other girl's got to get out and get up there and do it.
What kind of
Never went to
genius is
film
it that your
school,
weapon
and I don't
systems are not in
understand.
reach if you're
I
sitting in
don't
the chair?
know.
Again, ship design.
What the fuck?
Let me not have the weapons that I need right here. Let me have to stand up and go over here.
But
To do
he does not want to work with idiots anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's done work with idiots. He's going to work for himself, but he doesn't know he's an idiot. He shouldn't be an idiot.
So
Yikes.
just see, and that's, you know what that also is? That's our old friend from 2015, the defamation of the legacy characters. They've turned Boba Fett into a bumbling male,
Yeah.
and now he needs a girl to get him out of trouble. You do not elevate women by lowering men and
Right.
reducing them to mindless Cro-Magnon who make stupid judgments and make them into bumbling fools.
Right.
But that's exactly what they did in the Last Jedi. That's exactly
Yes.
what they did. You had
That's
Poe
why I'm saying
Dameron,
it's our old
who
friend
was
with
like
defamation of
he
character.
was the guy. He was like, you know, he's one of the most the most absolute best pilot, fighter, all that kind of stuff. He's the shit for not being a Jedi. And they turned him into, you know, they demoted him and they belittled him and they berated him and they kept stuff from him. And it's like,
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
okay,
he's
sure.
fucking Duke Leto now, so
yeah, well,
Yeah.
you know.
yeah. And
But this is a recurring pattern,
right.
and the fans continue to reward Disney by watching their junk.
But
Well,
They
I think
basically
I think
they ruined
unfortunately
Boba
it's
Fett, like they ruined Luke, like they ruined Leia, and like they ruined
Yeah.
Han.
right.
yeah.
It's the defamation of a legacy character.
But
Yeah.
So,
but going back to it, there's also a weird timeline in this because when the book of Boba Fett opens with him escaping the Sarlacc pit, that's directly after
Yeah.
directly during Revenge of the, Return of the Jedi.
Return of the yeah.
But
That's what I was saying
But
earlier
the
about
Mandalorian
time.
starts 5 years after that,
Yeah.
after destruction of the Death Star. So when Boba Fett gets his Slave One back, what's he doing in the interim 5 years? Is he looking for his armor for 5 years before he gets up with Din Djarin?
Okay, question. And this is the continuity thing, and this is one of those, maybe I'm using logic and reason and I should.
You should go ahead and use it.
Okay, I have Mandalorian armor. I am a Mandalorian, blah blah blah. Why I lost my armor? Go fucking buy some.
go back to Mandalore.
Yeah. Well, see, like you take okay, now we'll briefly go back to
Oh wait, let me
briefly
clarify
go back
something.
to the
Boba
Mandalorian.
Fett is not a Mandalorian. He wears the armor of the Mandalorians, but he's not a Mandalorian.
Well,
The
they
Mandalorian
retcon
in
that
the
in
Mandalorian series is a Mandalorian.
they kind of
They
retconned it.
whatever
They retconned
whatever
it in
plot
the Mandalorian show.
device they came up with, it was enough for Mando to hand him back his armor.
They did some
without an
thing
argument.
and they said, "Oh yeah, you're the
So-
legitimate arm of the
so-
of the armor." And
Therefore, whatever, I know it's going to give you an ulcer, Frank.
know.
I understand that. Deal with it, okay? But
He
he's
had
a
a
Mandalorian.
spare suit, by the way.
but Din Djarin's
Hey.
not from Mandalore either. He was a foundling, and they made him one because. So it's,
But he was adopted into there, and therefore
yeah.
he's can't take his helmet off, even though there are only Mandalorians in the room. That doesn't, again, continuity thing I have troubles with. It's like, how do you, I swear to God, you got to take that armor off to bathe. I hope you're bathing regularly,
Yeah, you would assume.
but
I
when
can
you,
understand if you want to keep your identity hidden, you keep the helmet on.
right. But he goes back
But
to
if
what we
you're
said earlier
completely,
as well.
if you are completely out of the whole uniform, no one's
Nobody's
going to
gonna
know
know.
you're a Mandalorian.
Yes.
If you're in the
Agreed.
suit without the helmet on, they can say, "Oh, this guy, we can identify him, and we can identify him as the Mandalorian." If you have everything off,
Yeah,
who's gonna know?
but it
Creative bankruptcy.
Yep.
Let's circle back
Sad.
to creative bankruptcy.
we always seem
They're
to
not
wind up there,
thinking.
don't we?
They're not thinking things through.
No.
They're world building off the cuff, and that's the most terrible thing you can do
Yeah,
to get
amen.
done.
That's the worst.
Amen.
That's the worst thing that can happen with any franchise.
Yeah,
It doesn't
and
matter
that brings
what
it
it is.
brings it back to the dark saber. What's the culture behind the dark saber? What are the rules? You just can't make up where you can give it away and then say no, you got to fight to the death for it, or that you own it and you can rule, which is a bullshit way of achieving a leader. But if you sit down and say, well, these are what we're going to do, then keep to it that way.
And yeah, that's and just
Now I
If-
know.
know
it's not a
Joel
fight to
knows
the
this.
death.
Bo-Katan could have told that Moff Gideon that no, you're bullshitting me because this is how I got it, and everybody's cool with it. So nobody has to fight to the death. if you. And who says you have
Well,
to
that-
stick to the
that-
rules all the time? I mean, if you only have 3 people in your little group left, I
Yeah.
think that you can change the rules.
Yeah.
I can
Well,
take
again, I go
I
back
can
to
take
the
my
not
helmet
taking the
off,
helmet thing off.
and
If
I'm
you're the
gonna
only
leave-
Mandalorians and 3 of you, there's only 3 of you. You're standing in the same room.
Yeah, I have the sword. I don't really, doesn't really matter to me whether I have it or not. If you guys want to fight over it, that's fine. I'm going to leave the damn thing here in your possession. And you can do whatever the hell you want with it.
Yeah. What is it again? What does it have to be a fight to the death? Okay.
And
we
when
have
I
to fight with
leave,
this
I'm
sword.
taking my fucking helmet
Okay.
off.
I yield. Here,
Right.
it's yours.
We don't have to
You
stick
know?
to the old rules if there's only 3 of us left. Who's
But this
or
is the way.
maybe there's more out there in the universe who obviously there
Well, there has to be
are.
more in the there has to be more in the universe because the first thing that Mando did with his income was go out and buy new armor.
Right.
Yep.
Well, he had
Typical
it,
guy
he had it
thing.
molded. He
Typical
had it-
guy thing. Using the smooth threads.
It's just his work uniform. He obviously has to take it off sometimes, right?
I don't know.
That's like being in the Air Force and wearing a uniform all the time
Yeah.
and never putting on civvies.
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
for somebody to complain about Air Force stories, bringing one up, but here
Right.
we
Well,
are.
see, there you go. I mean, that's what it is. You just don't like my Air Force stories.
Well, they're very long and off topic, and
I'm not complaining. Anyway,
that's
what was I gonna say? I don't know. Give me a minute. I gotta think about it.
yeah.
Boba Fett in the novels was down there for days. The author
Yeah.
wanted him to be there for years to really like suck up some of the juices of the other people. It even gives me thoughts, if there was a Jedi down there, is the Sarlacc, now that it absorbed it, is the Sarlacc force sensitive? Can it sense the force? Can it grab banthas and bring them in telekinetically?
If you said
See,
Good question.
I think though that it becomes an issue where you realize he gets out of the pit very soon after he was swallowed, fell
Well, in the
whatever.
novel, it was days, and originally
Yeah.
the author, Daniel Keyes Moran, wanted
Yeah, you
it
just
to
said
be
that.
years. but-
yeah.
Lucasfilm didn't want that, and I
Yeah.
guess maybe even some of the other license holders didn't want that because they did a lot of Boba Fett comics for Dark Horse in between that period. So Boba, you can't stay down there. Get your butt out here. We got comics.
we got
to
comics
write.
right.
Well, even at that rate, if you go back to the comic books that were written after A New Hope, it's got Luke and Leia hooking up, and
Yes. Well,
it's-
there's your incest from the Arthurian legend. The inadvertent
it's
incest.
a lack of continuity.
We didn't know because you
Yeah.
didn't tell us.
Yeah.
Right. Our authors of the comics.
But
yeah,
when you license something and you say, okay, you can use the name, and somebody writes a story that you don't really have any control over.
As the content creator, you should honor what you've allowed to be created.
amen.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
that's right. Take
You
responsibility.
putting your stamp
what
on
you've
it.
let
You
them
can do
do.
this.
Yeah.
This is the story now. You've taken it out of my hands. You've added to it. If I'm going to get back into it, I'm going to see what you've done, and I'm going to pick up after that.
Or I'm not going to contradict.
There we
We
go.
just lost Frank.
Yep.
Or I'm not going to contradict what you did. If I franchised you to, there he is.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to franchise, if I'm going to franchise you, to take this story that I have to use the characters that I created in this story, I have the responsibility to know what the hell it is that you've done.
Right.
And there have been examples where story pitches have been thrown to George Lucas. The best example, and I'm sure Paul has heard this ad nauseum, Dark Empire was originally going to be a new guy taking over Darth Vader's suit. And George Lucas didn't like that. So he nixed that. So then they came back with, why don't we use a clone of Palpatine and bring Palpatine back? Gee, I wonder who borrowed that idea.
I don't know.
And you want to know something? Timothy Zahn then used that idea with Grand Admiral Thrawn. He had an impostoring Grand Admiral Thrawn and terrifying the galaxy in the hand of Thrawn duology. So, and that was the better idea, honestly. George Lucas, whenever he sticks his finger in things, he makes it worse.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I think for me, as somebody that doesn't bother to read all of the expanded universe and all that other kind of stuff and whatever amount of blasphemy that amounts to, I think it doesn't matter who came up with the idea of cloning Palpatine, it was a bad idea.
Yes. And it came from George Lucas. George Lucas greenlighted that instead of an imposter in Vader's armor.
Well, it's, you know, even here's the thing, and it's if you go by the whole concept of the Sith, okay, the Sith ended when Vader picked the Emperor up and threw his ass off the balcony.
Essentially, yes,
it was done. The Sith were done. All right. Because the argument was, or the lore is, there's always two, a master and a student, but no more.
Boy.
Okay.
Which is stupid in its own.
And that's that. You know, my argument is perpetually going to be 99% of the people that watch these movies, that watch these shows,
I agree,
don't dig into the books. If they do, it's not a religion for them. It's I read that like when I was 12. I forget what the hell it said.
If George is going to create new movies, he needs to blow away the expanded universe. Otherwise, why am I going to consume your product when these other authors did a better job and you signed off on their titles?
Yeah.
And you changed things. And I'm like, goodness gracious, he created rules, what time periods the authors could write in and what time periods the authors couldn't write in. And then he compressed the time periods. I'm like,
well, let's say
all right, look, it's a dick move. And I'm like, hey, I was being a good fan. I was reading everything you sold, everything that had Star Wars written on it. I was reading it, I was consuming it, and now you betray us. What the heck? That's a lot of money I spent. And now you just kicked me in the face.
Money.
What do you mean Jedi can't reproduce?
It goes back to what George
Jedi
Lucas
can't
said.
have children.
George Lucas was like, yeah, I'm going to make these 3 movies, and after that, I really don't care what happens.
Wouldn't you want the Jedi
Clearly
to procreate with each other? Because then they keep creating Force-sensitive.
The Force is strong in your family. Pass on what you learned. What was Yoda mean? What did he mean by that?
Well, obviously,
the man doesn't remember what he wrote, which brings into question: did he actually write it? That's my argument. Maybe we're blaming the wrong person because he has no clue because he wasn't involved in the sufficiently. In the
he had a lot of notebooks by his desk, a lot of pencils.
Well,
here's write some ideas down. He wrote a script. And
I don't know. I think as far as that goes, lack of continuity, yes, but to sit there and say, based off of that, he didn't write any of it. I don't know if I can make that leap. But then again, I haven't gone through and fanatically read everything that's ever been written about it. I only go by.
I'll give you another example. The first Star Wars product in history was December 1st, 1976. It was the novelization. The movie wouldn't be out for many months.
Right.
If you read that novelization, it feels like the original. And what George produced on the screen was a copy, a cheaper copy. Yeah. Alan Dean Foster was an amazing author. He wrote that, and then he wrote the second episode of Star Wars in case the first one was a failure. He was going to go with Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which only took place on one planet and had a significantly smaller budget. Maybe the mastermind was not George Lucas. I don't know. How can you make such
let me throw this errors? Out. Let me throw this out as theory.
Go ahead.
Let me throw this out at theory. I come up with a story idea. I come up with a I've got my lead character, I've got my tertiary characters, I've got a general outline of my story. And then I sit down with Paul, and Paul fleshes the stuff out, and we get that and go on. Now, it's still my story, but because I'm not in Paul's head, there's certain things that I can't account for.
Thank you.
Because I don't know what inspired him to do that. Still my story. I still get the credit for it, but
it would be co-written.
I mean, but it would be, and it, but
all right, I'll give you another example. That novelization from December 1st, 1976. Sure. It says Star Wars, George Lucas. Alan Dean Foster's name doesn't appear anywhere on it. We find out later on that he was the ghostwriter. Well, George Lucas is building a great case against himself that he was the creative mastermind.
And I give you that, because even when even when you look at a lot of the stuff that goes on in other shows, again, that other franchise, Star Trek, the same thing would happen. It would have a writer's name on it, and the writer didn't have really much anything to do with it other than he came up with the idea, but everything else was done by Gene.
Right.
Gene constantly rewrote stuff. Constantly.
Yeah.
But
the
point is that if I go, let's say, for instance, let me flip the script on this, because Paul's the writer between the two of us.
Okay.
If Paul were to go, hey, here's this going on, here's this going on, here's this going on, here's my characters, here's this, here's that, here's the other. And I sit down and I go, well, hey, hold on a second. And I come up with 1 or 2 chapters, and I take them to him and I go, look, this is this. And he goes, you know what? This works really well. I can work this into what I'm doing. Boom. He's still the author. If I do that work knowing that he's going to get credit for it and I'm not,
you get a thank you in the front.
Probably. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate the hell out of that.
Yeah, the acknowledgments.
No,
Usually,
but I mean, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, if ghostwriters are not unique to the Star Wars universe,
absolutely,
and ghostwriters write stuff off. I mean, I would say if you looked at the top 10 books that are on, that Amazon sells, there's a very good chance, especially if that person is famous. And I'm not saying that Bill O'Reilly does this, and I'm not saying that some of these other people do, but when you got somebody that's cranking out a book every 4 months, but they have a full-time job,
they're not,
and they do other things,
you need help,
and they're constantly giving speeches, and they're constantly doing
they're
things.
your ideas, they're your notes, but you're not the one sitting down at the keyboard.
You're not the one sitting there actually hacking it out on the laptop. You're not, and that's in and of itself. Nothing wrong with that, but you are going to have some continuity issues when the guy
unless you take leadership.
When
and
George Lucas goes,
everything.
I don't know what this is, and he was supposedly wrote it. Yeah, I get your point. It does lend credence to the concept that yes, he didn't write it, but he's the one that gets credit for it. He's the one that's
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not making that claim with 100% stamp on it, but goodness gracious, how do you forget so much of what you wrote? It's just mind-boggling to me.
Look, dude, there's sometimes I don't remember what I had for breakfast. Okay,
you know what? Then you go back and you read your own material. Sit down and watch your movies again, and take some notes.
I mean,
to get your creative juices back. I don't know. There's a lot of factors.
It's like you wrote the script.
It calls a lot into question.
I mean, he had the Star Wars movie, but you didn't know if it was going to be a flop or not.
That's why he used the Death Star instead of a big Star Destroyer.
So you don't waste a lot of time doing a lot of good world building.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. But once you do know, all right, we can start to build that world. What are the rules in it? And so on and so forth.
And
then try to keep to it. And I think the rules for the Force were believable in the original. And then J.J. Abrams just added all kinds of other powers that didn't make any damn sense at all. Just because, let's turn this into magic fantasy instead of something with a good rule base.
Yeah.
I mean, stopping a bolster blast.
And unfortunately that happens.
Yeah, because that's cool. It'd be cool if he could stop a bolt, blaster bolt. That'd be cool. That'd look
But
really
Darth
cool on
Vader
screen.
did that on the banquet table on Bespin.
I think he deflected it.
He deflected it.
He didn't
Well,
He
stop
didn't
it.
stop
I
it.
get all right.
Kylo Ren
I'll give that.
stopped
I'll
it.
give
But
that as a
okay, but
interpretation.
And
Fine.
it's all this
But
weird
devil's
metaphysics shit that Kylo and Rey were doing, where they were like having the same experience but in different. I don't know what the hell out. But
well, it's what Snoke? No, the Emperor took credit for that. But you even at that rate, let's go. Okay,
you're making it too powerful in a sense.
Darth Vader was a Skywalker. They had all this, the Force was strong in their family. Leia's kid is going to have the Force.
Right.
Yes.
If they're more attuned to the Force, then yeah, maybe Kylo Ren could stop it and hold it as opposed to deflect it.
Maybe.
But what Paul was
it's
saying
another it's a reversal and another continuity problem, because I don't know. I guess Leia wasn't a full-blown Jedi, and
Right.
she had relations with Han, and she had Force-sensitive children. Now, why didn't Luke say, "Oh, you're not allowed to have children. You're Force-sensitive"?
Right.
well, okay.
The
Spoiler
prequels
alert.
don't work.
How does the Force
mechanics are
run
broken.
in your family if you don't have a family?
But that's why I'm saying the prequels are broken. Why can't Anakin and Amidala get married and have children? Why is that forbidden love? That is a major continuity problem. That is a global or a galaxy spanning continuity problem.
Not really,
it's not like one little problem on one little planet with one little character. This is a problem that spans the whole galaxy and breaks things. It breaks books. It breaks things that were said in the original movies. It's an equal opportunity sledgehammer. It breaks everything.
Okay. But see, here's the thing, and you're the resident expert, the subject matter expert for all things Star Wars, and you missed the fact that even Anakin said, "I'm supposed to not have these feelings. I'm not supposed to be doing these things, but I want to."
I think that's wrong.
By his own acknowledgement, he knew what the rules were. He just didn't care. Yeah. And again, the way that you go back to the way that the Jedi screwed him over time after time after time after time.
And as far as world building goes, what was those rules supposed to do? What was their purpose? What we can't have kids because
that way they could only focus on themselves. But even
I don't, you know what I'm saying?
Even admittedly,
it's kind of like Buddhism. It is the denial of desire.
Right.
That's the way I see it, at least.
Well, I think going back to it, A New Hope, Episode 4, as it became to be known, when it was the only Star Wars out there.
Right.
Paul's right. George Lucas had no freaking clue people were going to like it or not. None.
That's right.
Zero. So he didn't put a lot of thought into it.
No.
So then as stuff gets changed and modified and they've got this story and they need to do this, that to an extent is going to change things unless he was very proactive in it and went, no.
But I think they should have reined themselves in a little bit and say what they could do with the Force in the 3 original movies is what you could do with the Force.
Right.
That would have been.
And then we had metachlorians. What the fuck?
Oh my goodness! And George created that.
Yeah,
George created that.
That was stupid.
Beings of light need not this crude matter. We go from spiritism to
microorganisms.
To a physical thing. Yeah, and that's and that in and of itself is
Darth Vader as he's going down the
bad
trench.
Continuity, definitely. But
Darth Vader, as he's going down the trench behind Luke, he said, "The Force is strong in this one." Did he break out a midichlorian test and put a swab up Luke's nose in the Death Star trench? No, he knew because Luke was using the Force, or he sensed Obi-Wan Kenobi's presence on Luke,
I think
helping him.
For me personally,
they changed it.
They did a kind of a big injustice. My perspective, they did a huge injustice because there's a point where Darth Vader is like, there's a great disturbance in the Force. something I've not felt since, and he walks away.
Right.
Now,
That
in
leaves
my
it-
mind, the way that I see it is I go back to what did Obi-Wan say about the Force? It flows through a person.
Mhm.
It flows through the Jedi. There would be no disturbance in the Force unless the Force were bumbling around this person. So therefore, the person that he felt should have logically been Luke, because even though Luke was Force sensitive, he still hadn't figured out how to allow it to flow through him.
right.
still learning.
Whereas Obi-Wan
That makes
would have
sense.
known that. So he would have flown through,
Obi-Wan would have
and
known
there
it.
wouldn't have been a disturbance.
He should have been able to only know
See
that,
that?
he should have only been able to know that Obi-Wan was around
Right.
because they both were attuned to the Force.
Yes.
And attuned to
The
each other.
disturbance based off of what was known at the time of Jedi would not have possibly been, could not have possibly been Obi-Wan. It had to have been Luke. And this, of course, would also take it back to the point that Vader knew that he had a kid. Whereas
Yeah, but if you just take it at the time that Star Wars was
Sure.
just Star Wars.
Yeah, it was just a vague statement that he made and he walks
It-
off. but-
yeah, Darth Vader
Yeah.
was not Luke's father.
Right.
So he, in that sense, he's sensing. I think what the
He's
viewer-
sensing Obi-Wan because
Yeah,
it's
'cause
a
that's-
familiar. It's a familiar. It's a familiar.
That's
But
what
then
it's
he
telling me.
wouldn't
on
have
the
used the
trained
word
with it.
disturbance.
That's what
He
they
wouldn't have
wanted
used
to
the
tell
word
us.
disturbance.
I'm just saying, when it came
Yeah,
out,
no,
Darth
yeah.
Vader wasn't his son. I mean,
right.
wasn't
No,
his father
and
at all.
I agree with that. And I do. I agree with that.
So when he's saying
I'm
he-
all for that subscription, you know.
They
but
were meaning that
again,
he was Obi-Wan because
the
those two
Force
had been together.
flows through a Jedi.
Mhm.
There would be no great disturbance in the Force.
So, in the
Unless
trench,
Obi-Wan
maybe he
Kenobi
was.
was sitting
Maybe
on
it's
some
more likely he
8.5s.
was sensing Obi-Wan's presence with Luke in the
It
trench.
could be. I don't
Well,
know. I don't know. I'm just.
I don't know.
Or
It's-
maybe
it's-
at that range and seeing what Luke was doing.
I'm seeing what Scott is saying,
Yes.
given the other material
But
that came
yes,
after.
you have to have the full context in order to make
But
that
as a
assumption.
standalone, he could only have been talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Unless George Lucas really had those ideas flowing around in his head,
Unless he did.
and he
but,
was leaving. He was
but we
leaving
didn't have
Okay.
anything
breadcrumbs
in
for
this.
himself.
Did
we
George
already
Lucas
But we
have
don't
that
know.
idea in his head? Probably, because what is Vader? German for father. Sorry, not really a
it was
big-
Or Invader. There's been
was a-
numerous sort of Dark Invader.
Somebody's even said it was a bully that he had in high school. The kid's last name was Vader.
Yes.
I
So
think it's
there's a lot of that's the other thing. George Lucas is very good at
It-
producing a lot of fake news about his life
Huh.
for whatever reason, for whatever motivation.
I'm just
Well,
saying.
Chewbacca is
all
is-
things, all things being
is
equal,
dog and
how much do you want complete strangers to know about your life?
I get it.
Why do you think he has a ranch out in the middle of freaking nowhere
I
surrounded
know.
with security?
I know. He's an uber introvert. I know. He's probably a little bit autistic.
One of the main reasons that Paul doesn't want to do a lot of the things with his writing, with his art, and all those other kind of things, is that he does not want that attention. He doesn't
Agreed.
want it.
Agreed.
And
I don't agree, but I
although
agree on that.
although I can respect that, I think that I think that there's a whole world out there that are missing out on what
Yeah.
on the talent that he is. I
Yeah.
mean, I've you know, in my own
Yeah,
way, I
yeah.
have used the word genius to describe him, and I can't,
Yeah.
you know,
I'll give you that.
but he
Right.
writes some incredible stuff.
It's
He
hard
does
to
some
write,
incredible artwork. I mean, you know, not to brag, I've got something he drew. I have as a tattoo on my body. Nobody will ever have that ever.
Writing's work though. It's hard work.
It is hard work.
But,
This is not as easy.
I mean,
as
if you watch the
you read
iterations of
something, you think, wow,
Mercator-
this is easy. This is easy stuff to read something. But knowing how
and then
everything,
fleshing it, yeah,
knowing how
and-
everything fits together the way it should fit together.
right. And that
This can be.
that I think if if the people that wrote Star Wars, and if the people that wrote The Mandalorian, and if the people that wrote the Chronicles of Boba Fett put a tenth of the effort into what they're doing that Paul does for something he's not going to publish,
It drives me crazy because there are people like me who would be willing to help, but I think I am politically incompatible. Let's just say that.
I look at it this way. I sometimes, and I've said this to Paul, I sometimes help him get to where he wants by telling him what he doesn't want.
Yeah,
right.
I've got no ego in that, but I will throw 100 suggestions out to him, and maybe one might be something he goes,
yeah.
And I don't take offense to that, because he knows what he's doing. And sometimes if he's not sure of it, if I start telling things I know that he knows he doesn't want, then that will direct him to where he's going.
Yeah.
But again, stuff that would be very helpful for the people that write Boba Fett and but I think just based off of what I've seen and the conversations that people have had, I think the writing in The Mandalorian is quite different from the writing that is going on in Boba Fett.
They got Robert Rodriguez involved in the book of Boba Fett, and this is the guy who's also did Spy Kids. And Spy Kids I saw them with my son, and they're fairly decent movies. They're fun movies to watch.
Yeah,
if you've ever seen them, but they're for kids, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and if he's got kids, they're writing stuff for their kids, and you really can't do a hard crime show.
Sure.
And direct for children. It's gotta be watered down significantly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm seeing in the show.
Oh yeah.
All the stuff with the Tusken Raiders would have been fine if they had done it linearly instead of having these flashback scenes with the Tusken Raiders. If they just started with that and just kept us with him with the Tusken Raiders for a while and built up to the present time. I think it
traditionally Star Wars is linear storytelling. With the exception of the few flashbacks we've seen in Rogue One and the Book of Boba Fett.
Right,
and I think as a flashback, it works to go back to the Tusken Raiders because he has that flashback while he's in the healing chamber.
Right.
And he's dreaming, and if I comprehended the conversation he had correctly, that's not something that normally happens.
Right, but that's the only strong. That's the only strong point with the new show is the Tusken Raider scenes.
Not sure exactly where we left off on that. Something about continuity and
continuity really became the central problem with all of Star Wars from the Phantom Menace forward. As I've said, continuity problems grew by several orders of magnitude from the Phantom Menace forward. The previous ones were easily mitigated and explained away. How do you explain you got Jedi having children and pass on what you've learned, and Yoda's talking about our only hope is Leia having children, even though it was probably Mara Jade that he was talking about. But how do you reconcile all this reproduction of Force sensitives? And then you say, we love everyone in the galaxy, and we can't have relations, and we can't have someone close to us. And
I think when it becomes, I think as again, it goes back to what Paul said, is that the first movie almost has to be looked at as a standalone, because the world building, it was sort of like a movie set. That's not really a building over there. It's just the front of the building. There's nothing actually in it. And that's the amount of world building that was done. And then it was a hit. And then, now they've got to do this, and now they've got to do that. So
now you need to sit down and figure out what the Force is and who can have it.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, my interpretation was that anybody could be trained to be Force sensitive. It was like a martial art. And then they brought in this midichlorians and said, no, you only got to have so many of these things before you can be Force sensitive, before you can be trained. And we have to take you away from your parents, which is a traumatic experience for any child, which then negatively shadows the Jedi as an organization. They just
if anyone
don't
could
know
have
whether-
the Force, why would you hide Luke on Tatooine? It doesn't matter. Anybody could be trained to defeat the Emperor. There has to be some sort of justification for the protection of Luke.
A genetic lineage.
Mhm.
Right.
These are
Yeah.
very strong.
And
These are the only people who were strong enough to take this guy on.
Yeah.
Everybody else is not a threat.
right.
Mm.
But I think it went from being a situation, and that was the continuity issue. It was a thing where, okay, it's like martial arts, anybody can learn it, to being something that it shouldn't have been. And you know, you can question why somebody does something, but unless you're actually inside their head, you really don't know why they do it.
Right.
You know, why did this person do this? Why did this person do this? Why did they decide to do it this way? But that doesn't, I mean, I think for me, the question, or a question, would be, was George Lucas absolutely 100% satisfied and happy with what became episode 4? Was he?
Probably
No,
not,
because
I don't
the
think
special
he was.
editions.
Yeah, I don't think he was. And therefore he's going
No,
to,
you're right.
you know, he's going to change stuff to make it more like what he wanted. I mean, if you look at,
Enter the special editions.
to borrow from
97.
another,
Let's hide let's hide the main characters with animals walking in front of them in Mos
Right.
Eisley.
well, you know, understanding that there were different,
or adding Boba Fett
to me, the things that George Lucas added in the other movies were irrelevant. They didn't change the story.
Right.
The only thing he did that he changed in there was the whole Han shooting first thing,
Right.
Yeah.
which
And he added the Jabba the Hutt scene, which just slowed down the film, which actually I think that had a negative impact on the film's pacing.
Sometimes when you're trying to tweak your recipe, you'll do something wrong.
Yeah.
And as long as you learn not to do that again, that's one thing. But when you repeat that mistake over and over, then you know, first time it's an accident, the second time it's a choice.
Right.
I have more I would add to that. As many of you have known, Marcia Griffin Lucas, George Lucas's wife, divorced him in 83. And in a lot of ways, I see the special editions as spite work. It's like, oh man, I love that scene, but Marcia took it out. And you know what? I'm going to put it back in.
Right.
And she was right.
Well,
you want to know something? When your enemies are right, you should still listen to them.
Yeah. And it's funny, they put
no argument there, but I think if you look at, to reference another genre here, or another franchise, if you look at the Battlestar Galactica,
okay,
the reboot that was done, Glenn Larson said that's closer to what he wanted back in the 70s. And there was no way in hell that show was going to happen in the 70s. It was not going to happen.
Right. Okay. All right.
True, but
and then you even look, even in non-science fiction issues, you know, you look at the different things. Pee Wee Herman was a comedian, and he did a very adult, you know, routine, but somehow he wound up being a children's show host. Weird Al Yankovic wound up with his own kids show. And the thing that I remember from Weird Al, they were interviewing him one time about it, and he got really frustrated because they were constantly asking him, well, what are the kids learning in this 5-minute segment? What are the kids learning? And he's like, I hope the kids aren't watching this to learn stuff, because this is entertainment. You know, and I think that I think in a very large way that mentality unfortunately carries off into entertainment, is that you're supposed to teach something, or you're supposed to preach something, or you're supposed to check off these little boxes in your agenda, you know. And I think the ultimate result of that is the story suffers, you know. I can't help go back to, I can't help but go back to The Last Jedi.
And a moral, but
you don't always have to educate while you entertain, but some of the truly greatest authors that I have read can do both. Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's a season for it. There's a time to entertain
and
there's a
and I
time to
agree with you,
educate. Sometimes you can do them together.
Subtle
Yeah,
education.
to me, one of the worst bolt-on agenda driven thing that always springs forward in my mind is in The Last Jedi. Hey, they've got 18 hours of fuel left. We have to leave here, go to a planet, pick a guy up, bring him back, do all of this stuff because we've got this pressing time limit. People are freaking dying. Let's pause and go rescue and go release a bunch of animals just to make a statement that are going to be rounded up and put back in cages
Right.
anyway.
Anyway, you've done nothing except waste time.
And
The worthless side quest.
Yeah.
Anyway, go
And
on.
when the hell the Star Wars ships run out of fuel?
well, it's the thing to
Hey,
me
hell,
is it always seems that
Green
ships
God
don't
holds up
have
a
any
fucking thing
problems
this size and
unless
says,
it's
"This
a
is your
unless
power
it's a
for your
plot
pod
device.
race." Pod racer.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry.
it's a plot device.
It's
That's
a
all
poor
it
one,
is.
and that's the best thing you do is a slow speed chase. You're not a very good rider.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was what I was most disgusted with. It's like, okay, so let me get this straight. Your plan was to allow all of your ships to get destroyed so you can sneak onto smaller ships and take off. And then, oh, you're going to try to ram this huge ass giant ship with,
Hyperspace.
Ryan Johnson deserves to be mocked to the rest of his days.
Right. I guess Looper was a fluke. Well, actually, Looper was good. Knives Out was actually pretty good too. He just can't write Star Wars for shit.
well,
Maybe.
and that's and that I think is another problem that they have is that somebody will see something and they go, oh, I really like the writing in this. Let's get him to do this.
Right.
And it's not their forte.
And
I mean,
you're
it's just-
yeah. He's in the
Looper had a
water.
little bit of
He's drowning.
pseudo force in it with the kid who had the psychic powers. When they had a little bit of that psychic powers, you can do things with levitation, telekinesis.
Yeah.
And so maybe they said, well, I guess he understands the force. So I don't know. But Looper's
But again,
I
you go
love
back
Looper.
to
Looper's a
storytelling.
great
I'm still
movie.
trying to figure out how the resistance can win. The emperor is dead,
right. And
you
then
know,
these
and now
upstarts,
they're in charge of everything. And then suddenly, what,
don't
6
have-
months later, they're running for their lives.
they got rid of their military. They had to
You know,
put their money
and-
into social programs, so they got rid of their military.
Well, and then you turn around and you look at their weapons. Their weapon, the weapons of the bad guys keep getting bigger.
Yeah,
They had no plan.
they had no plan. They did
Period.
out the cuff.
And I don't know. There's a few issues. I think Paul mentioned one time that I thought was like, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. The Death Star didn't have to clear the moon of Yavin to freaking destroy the base. It didn't have to do it at all. It could just destroy the freaking moon and let the moon destroy the freaking planet.
That's right.
Or Alderaan.
Tarkin's hubris was
Right.
what ended him.
Well, the
Because
Yavin,
he wanted to look Princess Leia in the eyes and drop that freaking laser on Yavin 4. So yes, it was hubris.
right? Because
I
you could have blown up the gas giant. That would have took out. That would have settled everybody's hash.
Yes.
And here
it would have been a
and here-
supernova.
Boom.
It would have made a brown. It would have made a
this
brown
weapon-
giant.
You might have
out
want
of
to
Yavin.
come out of hyperspace a little bit farther back in the system, so you don't kill yourself in the process.
Right.
Okay, but so you have this weapon,
Still.
and where does the weapon get its energy from? You get the energy from absorbing it all from the sun, so it burns out of sun.
Right.
So why do you need to fire the weapon? Because you've taken their sun, they're going to die in like 12
That's
minutes.
all you have to do is get to go to the system, kill the sun. You've done it.
It's like you've
I
flown
think
through
Paul
the
is
system.
describing
Okay.
the Sun Crusher.
We're going to this system. It has 4 inhabited planets in it. We're
Right.
going to destroy all of them. Let's go over here, take out the sun,
Yeah.
and they'll die.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. That's what we just said.
But yes, again, the
But we gotta
Battle
shit
of
out
Yavin was about
weird-
hubris. Tarkin
Well,
wanted to personally shoot at
Leia.
Princess Leia.
With his
I can
super
get that to
laser.
an extent, but here to me is here to me is where,
And they put up. No, go ahead.
and I'm torn at it because the Death Star didn't work, but they turned around and built another one.
Well, they ran out of.
Well, the problem is George didn't know that Star Wars was going to be a success. Had he known, there is concept art of a super Star Destroyer, a much smaller but still devastating ship that could have came up and taken that rebel base and turned it into a glass bottom parking lot.
Dude, you could have parked 4 Star Destroyers over the top of a planet and annihilate the planet. Who gives a crap?
But George didn't know if it was going to work, so he wanted to put the Death Star in.
Right.
And
well, see,
the fighters could have swarmed around a Star Destroyer and knocked out its vulnerable point, and it would have still been just as good a movie. And then we could have upped the ante to the planet killer in Return of the Jedi.
Well,
that's what it was.
Again, it's like, oh, they can destroy an entire planet. Who cares? You drop the right kind of bomb, it burns the atmosphere off the planet and everybody's dead.
Yes.
Who gives a shit that the planet's still in one piece?
What it was is he took the bulk of the first act and took a device from the third act and put it in the first act because he was impatient. He didn't know if it was going to work.
Right.
George planned too much for failure and didn't plan enough for success. And I've said that many times. You'll hear me saying it on my deathbed.
Right.
But
again,
George didn't plan for success.
I think
he didn't think the movie was going to be popular.
And I think a real military organization like the Rebel Alliance, if they looked at the scans and said we got to hit the small duct, that's going to be exceedingly difficult to do without a force sensitive that we can't plan for. We need to bug out. As soon as we find out we can't,
I think
they did that in the second act.
As soon as we find out that this is going to take a lot more planning to accomplish, with a lot more clandestine operation, we need to bug out and escape this.
There's the perpetual argument.
We can try to come back and hit it again.
You have to follow this trench to hit a target that you could hit from here.
Right. That's what I mean. Go in there with a team of guys,
but it's shielded,
and drop your charge down.
Take the shields out. I mean, and as many times as they've taken shield generators out.
Yeah.
It's like,
but they had to do a movie where they had a guy that had to put that's the thing in there on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So David and Goliath.
Yeah, I mean, what would happen? What would happen if Red 1 had succeeded? He shoots the bombs in there. He flies out of there. Yeah, and the whole Death Star goes to hell.
Right.
Luke's
not a hero.
What's Luke doing?
It's got to be the Force.
Luke's career fades into obscurity. He's,
maybe
6 years later, he's Porkins.
Oh man, that's messed up, man. That's messed up. It's supposed to be about faith. Taking that shot of faith,
right?
Turning the computer off, and the droid is gone.
I get it. I
David and Goliath,
and we get it.
I get that.
It's plot driven.
There's still
they got an end piece they got to get to. So all the characters have to service the plot. The other characters have to do what needs to be done for the plot to happen. Yeah. So even though it doesn't make sense that a military organization go, well, the hell is here. We might as well take a shot. I mean, it's either us or them.
Darth Vader used this.
Luckily they had a force
not being
guy
able
who could
to target him.
Turn off his computer and just let it go.
And just feel the force.
Yeah.
Believe in,
You've turned off your targeting computer. It's got a malfunction. It's not laser.
That would have been a bad time for them to find out that Luke was working for the Empire, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You turned off your targeting computer. What's wrong? Not a damn thing.
That would have been an interesting twist.
That's too much like the conspiracy theory that I have.
How do you think they found us?
But I don't know.
That would be fun.
Is that it?
That's all I can think of.
Yeah, that's all I got. Well, I got more. I got more, but I believe in savory.
All right, so that's the show. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't,
what are you still doing here? You should have left a long time ago.
If you didn't like it, leave a nasty comment, please.
If you've seen the show,
No, if you liked it, give us a thumbs up. If you really want to get excited about it, just subscribe. But whatever you do, if you leave a comment, tell us how drunk you got while we were doing this.
Or yeah, I mean,
Well, if you were taking a shot every time I said continuity, you're probably unconscious on the floor at this point.
That's what we should do. We should come up with a word, and every time we say that word, the viewers have to drink.
Oh, that's silly.
yeah.